evening, Littleton. We're just taking care of a little bit of kickback on our speakers.
You weren't here, so you can't.
Yeah, definitely couldn't have been this time.
All right, good evening, Littleton. Welcome to the September 5th, 2023 Select Board meeting. I would like to start off with the Pledge of Allegiance, if you would, Mr. Clerk.
Allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
All right, this evening we will be going over some department board updates and requests. We'll discuss a few liquor license, one-day liquor license requests. We have a few gift acceptances, a couple contract and department updates. We'll then get into our member and town administrator updates and public input, and then talk about our special town meeting, which is scheduled for November 1st, 2023. We will have some select board discussion on weekly office hours scheduling and review and potential update to the select board use of town council policy. And we will go over the minutes and then we will adjourn. So not a terribly heavy agenda, but we know how that goes. So first off, we'd like to talk about Dirigible Brewing, I guess. Is that where we want to go, or do you want to read the mail?
Yeah, the mail.
First?
Sure. Just so here's our update on town boards, openings in town boards appointed by the select board. We have this up available on our website, so we recommend anybody who's watching or in the audience who would like to volunteer for any of these committees to please reach out to either the town clerk or the town administrator's office. So. Just a reminder to everybody that you can sign up for notifications on our new town website, which we're going to talk a little bit about later in the meeting. Just give you a quick overview on that. So to give you that reminder again, anything that you want to.
Morning, Will Robinson.
So, just to, again, let people know that if you do want to get updates on that you can sign up on our town website. And I believe the last item that we had here in the mail is just letting the board know that the tax collector's office has sent out betterments for our sewer project. I believe it's 80 some odd letters that we had to send out for that. This is a representative example of that. Just a reminder, this is the preliminary assessment based upon 10% of the estimated cost of the project cost. We will, in 2 years when the project is complete, theoretically in July 2026, would be then putting forward the actual estimates at that time, and actual projects, the actual betterments out to all of those entities at that time. But we have kicked this process out. I want to just give some accolades to our finance team. This was a lot of work in terms of drafting this letter, getting this together for for all of the entities that we were sending it out to, about 80 or so businesses and households in town. So my thanks to everybody on the finance team for coming together and getting this in place. So,
One clear, July of 25 is when the sewers be done, right? Is that when the letters go out?
Well,
the 25 or the letters?
What we did mark what's going out now is the preliminary assessments, and this allows us to make that so that we can then put the betterments on each one of the property.
Right.
So we have that in place. and
Right,
so-
I understand that.
yeah.
You just said it was July of 26, and I just wanted to.
For the actual,
So
yeah,
the actual bill will come out in July of 26.
that's right, because then we'll have the actual
The
cost.
sewer should be completed in July of 25, though, I did 2 years. So that's why I'm trying to,
Yeah,
just a clarification.
yes, correct, that is correct. Thank you for correcting me, right? It would be July 2025, right?
Okay.
That would be an extra year off, so my apologies then. So that, just wanted to give the board that.
And this betterment right now is just the 10%.
Correct. So it's definitely lower than what they would be anticipating otherwise. And really, more than anything else, it provides us a legal standing with the assessment of the betterment to ensure that it's leaned against each one of the properties, and that obligation is established for each one of this 80 some odd properties that we have. That's its primary objective.
Okay, thank you.
And that's it.
All right. Looks like we have a couple of Dirigible Brewing request for one-day license for Littleton Road Race at Fay Park on September 17th, and the Dirigible Brewing request for one-day license, a liquor license at Farm 359 King Street, October 14th, 2023. Good evening.
Good evening. How you doing?
All right, good to see you again.
Good to see you as well. Yeah, trying to knock them all out at one time instead of coming every month.
It's okay, too.
Are there any, you have any comments? I mean, this is pretty standard for what you've
Pretty
been.
standard stuff.
Yeah.
Road race will be a new one for us, so that should be fun. It's kind of a family event, so actually we're going to be bringing some of our craft soda as well to that one.
Oh, nice.
So it's kind of a daytime thing. Oktoberfest is not anything new to us, of course. It's old hat, but should be fun.
Okay.
And Farm 359, looks like it's probably going to pretty much be the same thing as the one we did earlier this summer.
Yeah, okay. Any questions from the board?
All the paperwork seems to be in order, so I think we're good to go.
Things-
So I'm actually on the road race committee, so I'm going to recuse myself from the road race. So if someone else could read the motion.
Yeah.
Move that the Select Board vote pursuant to Mass General Law, Chapter 138, Section 14, to issue a special license, also known as a one-day liquor license, to Colin Knirk and Christopher Loring of Dirigible Brewing Company, LLC, for wine and malt beverages to be served during the Littleton Road Race on Sunday, September 17th, 2023, between the hours of 12 p.m. and 4 p.m.
Second.
Okay, moved by Matthew, seconded by Chuck. All those in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed? And we have one recusal. All right, next. This one you can read.
Move the select board vote pursuant to Mass General Law, Chapter 138, Section 14, to issue a special license, also known as a one-day liquor license, to Colin Knirk and Christopher Loring of Dirigible Brewing Company, LLC, for wine and malt beverages to be served during the Farm 359 community event on Saturday, October 14, 2023, between the hours of 1 p.m. and 6 p.m.
Second?
All right, moved by Mark, seconded by Matthew. All those in favor, say aye.
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 That is unanimous. All right. Look forward to seeing you. Thank you.
The Oktoberfest one, did that one not get through, maybe?
You had
Which one?
Or the
Yeah.
Oktoberfest on the 30th?
Did we not include that in this?
It wasn't in the packet.
So, let's see. So, yeah, no, we've got the two that we had, Colin, were these two, the road race and this. I think you got the other one in maybe later. We can go on to the next one.
Okay.
Next meeting.
We'll put it on
I'll
the
make
next
sure
one.
that that gets.
Honestly,
Yeah.
if you're not able to make that next meeting, don't worry about it. We've kind of been down this road, so.
When's the next meeting?
It's 2 weeks.
2 weeks,
From
so
It was from
Yesterday.
yesterday.
All right.
Yeah.
So the
8th, 17th, 18th.
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 All right.
Yeah, so just get in contact with my staff.
Yeah, I'll make
Colin,
sure I
take
get
care
that
of it.
in there.
Sure, okay.
All right.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks, Colin.
Can we get that signed so we can get that to Colin?
All right. We, looks like next up we have a gift acceptance from the library, from the New England Canada Kuta. Hope that's how I pronounce it.
All right. Sam Alvarez, Library Director. So a few weeks ago, we received a donation from the New England Kanata Kuta for $750. They want to thank us. They've been using this room for a few months for it's an Indian dance group. It's actually several groups of Indian dance groups. and they do traditional Indian dance, and then they had some sort of big ceremony, I guess, where they all dance together. And so it went really well. It was the 50th anniversary of their group doing this. So they wanted to say thank you to the library for letting them use this space by donating $750.
Wow.
Nice.
Fantastic. Yeah. Any further comments? Nope. Is this going to be an annual event for them at the library?
So they've used the library in the past.
Yeah.
This is the first time they've ever given us a donation before.
Wow.
So I don't know.
All right. Well, thank you to the group out there. Let's have the motion.
Move that the select board vote pursuant to Mass General Law, Chapter 44, Section 53A, and per its policy on solicitation and acceptance of monetary and non-monetary gifts for public purposes, to accept the donation to the Reuben Hoare Library in the amount of $750 from the New England Kannada Kuda NEKK for programming.
Second?
Been moved by Mark, seconded by Chuck. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
It's unanimous. Thank you. Thank you. Great. All right, moving right along, Elder and Human Services. We have a gift acceptance from the Mass Rural Transit Assistance Program, MRTAP. Good evening, Liz.
Hello, good evening. Liz Tridiak, Director of Elder and Human Services. So tonight I have two gift acceptance requests. This first one is from, as you said, the Massachusetts Rural Transit Assistance Program. This was for the Helping Hands mini grant that they do annually, and it is for incidental things related to our transportation programs. So we received $600 from that grant for staff uniforms, driver shirts, driver hats, outreach shirts. So I am here to respectfully request the ability to accept that $600.
And is this an annual gift, or is this the first time that?
We've applied for this one before.
Oh,
It's a grant. Yeah.
But first time we got the grant? I'm just curious. I don't.
No,
We've got, so we have.
we've had this one before.
Great. Great.
I've
Okay.
said it before and I'll say it again. We need to get to a point where these guys don't have to come in and have us authorize accepting gifts.
I'm sure we do.
There's got to be some limit that we can create, craft a bylaw wherein we can authorize the town administrator to accept the gifts on behalf. My opinion.
All right.
Move that the select board vote pursuant to Mass General Law, Chapter 44, Section 53A, and per its policies on solicitation and acceptance of monetary and non-monetary gifts for public purpose, to accept the donation to the Department of Elder and Human Services, EHS, in the amount of $600 for the Massachusetts Rural Transit Assistance Program, MARTAP, for the purchase of staff uniforms for the EHS office staff and van drivers.
Second.
Moved by Mark, seconded by Chuck. All those in favor?
Aye.
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 Thank you. All right. Great. Next.
Okay, the next gift is from Season Insurance Company. Their owner is Sarah Den. She's local here, right in Littleton. She gifted $1,000 for the TREAD Fund, which is our tax relief for the elderly and disabled fund. So we're extremely thankful for that because the account relies solely on donations from the community, and it is rather low this year. So I'm here to respectfully request that we accept this $1,000 from Seasons Insurance for the TREAD Fund.
That's fantastic. This is a new business in our town, is correct, as well?
I think relatively new. She's right up on the common.
Yeah, right on.
She does
okay.
Medicare counseling, I believe.
All right, yeah.
All right, well, thank you. It's a very generous gift. So, any comments?
Thank you.
All right.
Move the select board vote pursuant to Mass General Law, Chapter 44, Section 53A, and per its policy on solicitation and acceptance of monetary and non-monetary gifts for a public purpose, to accept the donation to the Department of Elder and Human Services, EHS, in the amount of $1,000 from Seasons Insurance, LLC, for tax relief for elderly and disabled TREAD Fund.
Second.
Moved by Mark, seconded by Chuck. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Thank you, Liz.
Thank you.
Thank you, Liz.
Nice night. All right, moving right along here. Department of Public Works, request to approve a contract for $574,680 with Seal Coating, Inc., doing business as Indus of Braintree, Massachusetts, for pavement preservation.
People don't donate money to us, so.
It's a tough act to follow.
Yeah. Thank you. Stephen Yonley, Director of Public Works. Just here looking for the board's authorization for us to enter into contract with Indus for the annual pavement preservation program for $574,680. We had advertised for a few weeks. A lot of people pulled the bids, but as has pretty much the standard with this type of work, Indus has kind of cornered the market on it. They've had the bid here in town for the last 4 or 5 years since the program started, and I know that most other communities around here use them as well.
All right. Any questions?
Steve recommends them, I'm good with it.
No issues with their work in the past 4 or 5
No.
years? Okay, then.
All right, let's look for a motion.
Move that the select board vote to authorize the town administrator to sign the contract for pavement preservation and related work for Seal Coating Inc., DBA Indus, in the amount of $574,680.
Second.
Moved by Mark, seconded by Chuck. All those in favor?
Aye.
Thank you, Steve.
Thank you.
All right, next up is our continued department head operational update series that we're trying to do throughout the department. So next up, we're going to hear from the fire chief, interim fire chief, Tom Clancy, and we will discuss an operational update, and then we'll get into a
No, I can't.
transfer
No, it's not
of
set up
money
that
within
way.
that department.
Yeah, this is where we, I'm sorry, it's only tough. Let me see. So let me know, I could have done. No, I don't know. Yeah. Anyway.
Good evening, Tom Clancy, interim fire chief. Sorry about that.
You can see this though, right?
Oh yeah,
Okay,
no problem
good.
at all. First and foremost, I want to thank Ryan for fitting me into the schedule so I could be before the board this evening. I also like to extend my appreciation to my new executive assistant, Michael Rinn, and interim deputy, Jim Ray, who helped me gather the data so I could put this presentation together. Jim Ray's last shift was Thursday, so he's back out to pasture. So, but the last 5 months he's been so helpful to me, someone to talk to, cover for me when I'm not in town, so he was very much appreciated. But we're moving forward now with a full-time deputy. So
I saw the announcements.
I wanted to thank him publicly because all I did was kind of like not be nice to him while he was there. So hopefully he's going to see this. I wanted to give the board a little historical background where we are as a department. Heading into the 21st century, we were primarily a call department. The call department saved this town a ton of money by stepping up, covering the ambulance, the fire calls, everything. But as 495 grew and the town grew, the need for more full-time staff occurred. So in 2008, the full-time staff was increased to 12-hour coverage 7 days a week. So that was the first time in the history of the department there'd been people here 7 days a week, and they worked to 6 a.m. to 6 p.m., 2 people on 12 hours a day. As the town continued to grow, the numbers of the call department continued to go down. We had nights where the ambulance wasn't staffed. We went to in 2013, the town appropriated the money to go to a 24-hour staffing. I'm not ready for those yet, but that's okay. And so we went with 2 people covering the town 24 hours a day because we just couldn't staff the ambulance consistently enough. And because our medical calls were increasing as the population of the town increased. So there's a 5-year span. Now we get to 2018 and we went to the paramedic level service, which enabled us to add more personnel. So we went from 2 people per shift to 4 people per shift, including a lieutenant on each shift. It also, the deputy chief at the time, whatever his name was, volunteered to be the fire prevention officer, taking that out as another person to respond, but it was needed for funding. And, the call department lost more of their mission, so to speak. So as we get into the pandemic and into where we are presently, I have a handful of dedicated call members, but I can count them on a hand. And what we're seeing is, presently, the chief's been out since January with an injury. We have filled the fire prevention position with money that was appropriated, basically overtime money at last November's special town meeting to fund that. We filled that position in February, and at our annual town meeting in May, we got an additional firefighter paramedic. So as we enter another 5-year span, what's been alarming over the last 2+ years has been the number and increasing number of back-to-back calls we've experienced. If you could just back up to 2021. Thank you, right there. So from the slide, you can see that in 2021, we responded to 335 back-to-back calls. Those are tracked as 4 different types, as you can see up there, with over 50% of them being a medical while at a medical. And why that's important is because each time that second call comes in, then we ask people to come back and cover the station, because that means that both my ambulances are out of town, taking all 4 of my on-duty personnel out of town. And in 2021, we started to track, okay, when we ask for station coverage, how many people are coming back? And as that's what that data on the bottom is. As you can see, 65% of the time we get 0 to 1 person. And there's 18%, 2 to 4 people. Now, it's kind of labor intensive to break it out by time of day, but it's to show that we're not getting a lot of people back. So as we get into, next slide please, the 2022, we ended up with, we changed some language in the collective bargaining agreement with the union to pay them more to come back, to try to incentivize people to come back. But we continued, we had a 46% increase from 2021 to 2022 in the number of back-to-back calls we experienced, and medicals climbed closer to 60%, but still over 50. And again, 0 to 1, 60%. If we broke it down even further, after 9 p.m., I'm not really seeing anybody coming back. A lot of that percentage is during the day, but that's to be understood. It's just people have to give up what they're doing to come back. It's not always feasible. So next slide, please. As we get to the present year, we're on pace to break 400 again. And you know, we've had 269 through August 29th. I can tell you today we had 2, including 3 at the same time. And to put it in perspective, as you can see in the 2 to 4 range, we've had an increase in the percentage coming back for this year. We also made it for the call members to get more money to come back, to try to get people to come back, but the number's low. And yesterday on the holiday, we had 3 high acuity medicals. High acuity meaning very sick people that required both the paramedics on duty to be in the back of the ambulance while a third member has to drive. This happened 3 times between 8 a.m. and 8 p.m. yesterday. And my outlay of pay for people coming back yesterday was $2,400. And if I'd had 5 people on duty, it would have been 0. But in this case, I have 4, and you know, it just keeps increasing along with our call volume. Next slide, please.
Chief,
Yes, go
could I
ahead.
stop you for a second?
Yep.
So could you explain, I think it'll help a few of the board members as well, on, or you get a call, an ambulatory call, wherever. When that happens, are you making the call then to have callbacks?
No,
You-
the
you
first
have-
call is not.
Because you have
Because-
people at the station at
Yeah,
that point?
so we're going to have 2 back. So a normal transport in an ambulance is two people.
All right, so what triggers mutual aid for you? In this scenario that you've described up here, what would trigger you to have to go out of town at that point? A third
Or-
call?
Yes, like for instance, today, we had back-to-back medicals within 20 minutes, both transports.
Yep.
As I returned to the station, we had a fire alarm activation at Donlands for a broken sprinkler head. I had 2 people that came back because when we knew we were transporting the second medical, a text page went out for station coverage.
Yep.
I had 2 members there, myself, the 2 members, and an engine from Acton came.
Okay, thank you.
And sometimes it's an ambulance. So if the second ambulance is out, and then that's a mutual aid ambulance. But it's really down to, for instance, last week, Groton had a structure fire.
Yeah.
We respond. And the agreement between the chiefs is if I have a fire, they come. That's how we roll. So I went, and for 2.5 hours, there wasn't a soul in the fire station. And we had a fatal car accident the week before that. We had 1 person come back Again, 12:30 at night. I had to call Westford to cover because we had an extended time on the highway. So these are once again, as you can see from this slide, there's 147 times that we haven't had, the station's been empty for over half an hour. We've been tracking back-to-back calls for a number of years. It's now we're getting into, okay, so how many are coming back? How long is the station empty? So when we respond to a medical or even say a mental emergency, that's still 2 people gone, right? So I lose half my staff on each of the 1,000+ ambulance transports I do every year. And when I have back-to-back, there's nobody. And that's why it's just becoming, as you saw, a 46% increase from one year to the next. And this year it continues to go up. I had 2 or 3 on Sunday. I don't know what it is. It's just, I can't explain it because I can't predict it. But it's becoming, and it's a safety issue.
Okay. Does your back-to-backs include, let's go back to the mutual aid piece.
Yep.
Are they part of your back-to-backs?
Yes.
When you get called out, so that's
Yes.
considered a back-to-back? if you've got an ambulance.
Anytime there's an ongoing call and another call comes in.
Okay.
That's considered a back-to-back call.
Can you explain a 46% increase in call, in number of responses? That's insane. I mean,
Yep.
the population hasn't grown, we haven't gotten 46% older, traffic hasn't increased by 46%. What's going on?
21, you could probably pull out of Goldsmith Street within 5 minutes. 22, everybody stopped wearing masks. Everybody started going back to hospitals. Everybody started driving again. My call volume in that span was up. So you gotta remember, 20 was nothing.
Right.
And 495 for 2 weeks had no one on it. COVID. 21, some states got rid of mask mandates. 22, it was like, here we go, we're good.
It's probably consistent with other communities that are going to have the same structure as us as well.
But we were also seeing for the longest time, life care was one of our biggest areas of transport. Urgent care is catching right up to them. We go there quite a bit. Again, people, hey, I don't feel good. They get in there, something more than not feeling good, and they call us, and we transport them. So the increase is due to, you see it now. Pre-pandemic, 495 was a parking lot every morning. It is again now. It's back to just craziness, Everybody's looking for help. Everybody's driving. I don't know where they're going, but that's what I attribute it to is the opening back up of our society to get back out there and do that. So I didn't expect this many questions this early. So, but next slide.
Came prepared.
Oh, I'm sorry. If that one. So I just did this slide here. Just shows going back to 2018, where you can see we had 246 back-to-back calls. At that point in 2018, we weren't tracking how many people came back because we still had enough people coming back at night to say we're okay, but it's become an issue. Next, please. So this just shows for the year, of the 269 back-to-back calls we've had this year, and they're primarily focusing on the medicals of 148, 55% of that time, all my members are tied up at whether they're transporting or what. It's the whole department, so my on-duty staff is maxed. I don't have anybody left. Next slide. And then we're showing, here's another one showing still we're near 50% of 0 to 1 members returning when we ask for station coverage through the end of August. So, and again, we saw a 62% increase in our total run volume from 2013 to 2022. And I use 2013 as the benchmark because though we've been a fire department since 1912, like I said, we went to 24-hour service in 2013. So 10 years ago in July, we started that. And I like to say that we're a new department. We're 10 years old. We're growing. We're having growing pains. And just like the town, there's growing pains going on right now. And if it's not having anybody, it's also increasingly difficult to find people to do this job. But putting into perspective, we can't do it without people. We can't work remotely. We can't call Uber. Well, no, we're not going to call Uber. But we need people to do this job. There's no way around it right now. And that's why I'm before you tonight to talk about not only operationally where we stand, but succession planning. So if I go to the next slide, because again, that our community is going to continue to grow, and we have to be ready for that challenge the future is going to bring to us. So, because Karen's new, is that picture on the left's the old fire station? And that's Chuck's favorite old ladder truck right there. I found that one. You know, we used to have, look at that grass, never looked better. And so going forward, if I go to the next slide, Ryan, so presently in current, FY24, this is the makeup of the department. There's the chief, also the emergency management director, the deputy chief, which we hope to fill by the end of the year. I have the on-call department in 4 groups with 4 members on them, including a lieutenant. And as you can see in group 2, I highlighted one in red. That's the new addition in this fiscal year that we did. So going forward to next year, I'm going to be requesting in my budget 3 additional firefighters. I need people. Yesterday showed just how much, and again, throughout the holiday weekend, normally holiday weekends here are pretty quiet. It was a very busy weekend with some very, very serious transports we did over the weekend.
It was good that you were able to quantify it for us, because I think that paints a good picture for us.
Yeah, it's really, Chuck, it's just down to, I've been saying this since I presented the budget in 22. The days of your chief and deputy living in town, I always look at it from a standpoint of like a business person. Does this make sense financially? And I'm like, because there's tax revenue and everything else, I need to do this. We are a department that's, you know what? And I apologize, my slide's wrong because that's what was on my new one. There should be 4 underneath each lieutenant. But the bottom line is, I need the resources to keep my people safe, but also to make sure we provide the service that the people expect from the fire department. And the men and women of the fire department do a fantastic job. They truly do. But moving forward, we have to be ready. So if we could go to the next year. So what I propose in FY26 would be the promotion of 4 captains. So what we're doing is, as I mentioned, we're a new department. We're 10 years old. I have people who have been here who started their career in 2013 and had one opportunity to move up. If we want to retain good people, they have to have the opportunity to move up. They want to say, I want to stay in Littleton because I have the opportunity to move up. That's important. We spend a lot of money training people. We provide them with excellent equipment. The town we have a beautiful station, new equipment, but you got to give someone the incentive to stay. I keep comparing it to professional sports. If you don't have the practice facilities and those players they're not coming to play for you. They're going to go somewhere that has it. We have the stuff. We just don't have the pathway to promotion, and that's what I want to say. That's a pretty good catchphrase I just came up with standing here. It was a pathway to promotion.
Okay, let me ask you a question.
Yep.
Are any of your lieutenants expected to put in for the deputy position?
I don't know. I don't know.
That just opened, correct?
That just opened last week, yeah.
I have a question for you on this slide. On your
Sure.
previous slide, you said you wanted 4 people on lieutenants. On the 26, are you planning on hiring 4 captains, or you're promoting?
No, they will promote. We'll still be at 5.
So you're not changing the...
I'm not changing the staffing level.
Okay.
I'm changing the
Organizational structure.
the organizational structure to give me another layer. In addition to giving them the pathway to promotion, this also starts to groom people to move up to the administrative side.
Okay.
So you're pulling the captains from the firefighter force down below,
Yep.
basically.
Right.
And then
Pulling from the firefighters, lieutenants.
correct.
So we'll still be staffed at 5 per shift.
Okay. And the
but-
captains are they're union positions as well, correct?
Yep.
Okay, thank you.
Yep. And so in 2013, when we went to 24-hour staffing, we had, up until then, we had a day shift captain. That position then became the deputy chief, because as he increased his staff, he asked the board to allow him to bring another person onto the management side. So the captain's position, which was a day shift only, moved into the deputy chief's position back in 2013. But this is important, in my opinion, to not only get good people to come and work here, but to get the people that work here to say, I have a chance to move up, especially with a young department with a lot of young people in officer positions. It has to be that. But I also want to look at the future and say, who wants to be the deputy? Who wants to be the chief? I had the meteoric rise of one day I was a firefighter EMT basic in the EMS quarter, and the next day I was the deputy chief. And you need that layering, because they get the experience and they also get to know the people better. They've managed them. And now when they've been their supervisor, now as they move up, there's a better understanding of how the people that under them work. And that's why I think this is so important.
I think your point about not just attraction and recruiting people, but also the retention part of it, because you said it, we've got the tools, we've got the facility, we've got good people, and now with a line of sight to moving forward, it's going to help us retain.
And we're going to be busier. You know what I mean? So we're going to, I don't see how we just don't get busier as the town continues to grow. I just don't see. And then finally for FY27, a second deputy chief, and I would split the deputies. And the reason for this is I'd split the deputies between one chief of operations, deputy of operations, and one EMS and fire prevention. And what that does is, if somebody's out for whatever reason, short term, long term, you still have two people in charge. And what we've experienced over the last 2 years, I mean, 2+ years, since July of 21, we've really had no consistency for the people that work here. And I think it's important for the rank and file to understand, like, hey, there's a plan moving forward. The town is on board with this, and we're gonna take the department forward. I think that we just need some kind of consistency with the department right now. We've just been we're still getting it done. It's just, we need some consistency there. And that's what I wanted to bring to the board tonight, was just to share that. And so you weren't blindsided when I present my budget, but more importantly, just so you understand that I have some people working a lot right now. It's hard to find people, we get them in, but we're busy. My concern is their safety, because as people work too much, they make mistakes, and then bad things happen. But we have a great department. I mean, I can't say enough about what they do and how well they do it. And I just want to, this isn't about Tom Clancy. This is about the fire department. This is about moving forward, that we have a plan to grow with the town. The infrastructure project, the proposed development, we can't wait till it happens and say, okay, we got to do something with the fire department. We got to be ready, boots on the ground. Like when we built the fire station and we put 6 bunk rooms in there, no way we're ever going to get 6 people here in my lifetime. I'm not so sure FY27 might not be another adding more people. It depends. There's a lot of factors, but we have to be ready. And right now, I definitely need 3 more people next year, because it's just. And I will work with the interim finance director, or try to get numbers to you ahead of time on what that'll cost. But it's imperative, because I just don't have the resources right now to ensure their safety and that we provide the service we need to the town. We need to have somebody back here covering the town when there's no one right now. So, are there any other questions?
I assume that the increase in staffing will reduce the overtime.
Yes.
But do you have any sense of how much that will be and how much it'll balance
the
increase?
So the thing, like overtime, you can yes, it will. But then people get hurt. Families get pregnant. There's factors, I can budget in what I think my overtime be, and I can reduce it. But then there's other extenuating circumstances that happen, or people leave, or things like that. I wouldn't, like I said, yesterday, staff to 5, I don't have that $2,400 charge on my overtime account. And I didn't go into Sundays and the rest of the weekend, but it is pretty alarming.
Yeah, I think it's more than the overtime. I don't think it equates.
Oh, I'm not saying it's going to balance out. I'm just curious if you can.
You're going to have the overtime.
Some sense of like how much it's going to get reduced. I mean, there's always like the push and pull of the budget, right?
Right.
And you're increasing yours, and that means someone else is going to have to reduce, or.
And for the last 2 years, where we've basically been short-staffed since June of 2021, consistently we get fully staffed and somebody leaves. We get fully staffed and someone gets injured, or something happens. It's just like a never-ending bicycle that I ride. And yet, at the end of the fiscal year, we find ways to squeak in and not have to, hey, guess what, I'm short. Some things are, even if you go back to 2022, at one point in January of 2022, I had 14 full-time people. I had 2 openings. I had 7 people with COVID one week, and we still got the job done. But that puts an undue burden on the men and women who are there. So I'm not sure I could honestly stand up here and say, absolutely. It's gonna help, and it's gonna mean, right now we staff to 4 every shift, regardless. With 5, we'll staff to 4 if somebody's out.
Okay.
So we'll do things like that rather than, for instance, in one point, in the last pay period of July, for a 2-week period, my regular salary payroll item was $40,000. My order-in overtime line item was $20,000. Again, vacations, all that stuff going on. Half my regular salary item was people being forced to come into work. And that's just a recipe for burnout, see you later, I'm going somewhere else. And then they find out it was really good here and they want to come back, but no one comes back. So that's why I'm talking about the staffing, is we need to make sure we're taking care of our people. We give them a pathway to promotion, but we're able to have the resources to provide the service. We are public safety. We are paramount. There's no snow days, there's no half days. We're 7 days a week, 24 hours a day.
Thank you.
I'm about 6 days a week, 18. That's about me. That's it. I got to have that one day. Any other questions? And thank you so much for taking the time to hear me out on this.
I want the captains to be a pathway to be a deputy chief, and to be the chiefs.
Yep.
I think as a town, historically, that's how the town's operated across the board. Now it seems to be like everything else. Nobody lives in the town anymore. People are being pulled from all over. But because as this is written right now, I'm almost looking at the second deputy. Right now, you're one deep on the senior management, not even senior management, on management staff.
Yep. Me, myself, and I.
Right. So
yep. But
to be one deep, again, if something happens to you, because it's happening now. This is why I bring it up. That second deputy chief, to me personally, when I look at this model, becomes as important as these other positions that you spoke of, probably before FY27, to get a management team put together. Now that I know, I wasn't sure if the captains were actually on the management side or the management group. Now that doesn't mean they're not going to be the leaders of the rest of the group. They obviously are, as lieutenants are now. But just having that extra senior management person for vacations, for everything else, for injuries.
Coverage,
So. But it is, and again, right now, my 4 lieutenants are doing work of captains.
Right.
Because again, we're 10 years old, we're growing, and they're doing the scheduling, they're setting up the training, they're responding to calls, and it's getting to be. You can see the frustration level. And summer isn't a really, it's a tough barometer, because nobody but maybe my wife and I like going camping in October. Most people don't want to take a vacation, and they want to go in the summer. And so you have staffing shortages, and people have to come in and fill it, and time away from their families. But it's more about recognizing that the town's growing, we're growing, and we have to grow the department. We can't sit back and wait till it's too late.
All right, now tell me, how long do you think this model holds for in your mind? When you built this, put this together?
Yep.
What are you thinking? Are you thinking 2030? Is that what you're?
Well, I'll be honest, Gary. I don't know. Nobody knows what the pipe in the ground's going to bring, right? I mean, it's
true.
It's
well, we
like,
do.
you know,
we kind of do.
We get pictures, we get definitive subdivision plans. I mean, I've been looking at plans for 5 years on different things, and I always say, don't get too excited until they start digging, putting foundations, and it goes up. So, I projected out where I thought financially the town could fund what we're trying to do. And I'll be honest, when I shared this, we had a staff meeting in May where I kind of shared this plan with the membership. And back then, my first thought was to promote the captains first. But after the summer we've had, I need those 5 people on a ship. The lieutenants they're able to handle that. It's still within a good span of control, but I need boots on the ground. But we also need, as we increase the staff, you need more supervisory things. So that's why I flipped it in FY '25 and '26. So originally FY '25 was going to promote 4 captains, 4 lieutenants, but
Then pulling the firefighters.
yeah, and I just think, really, I'm trying to focus on the infrastructure project and revenue stream. Because when the building permits come in, then you have a revenue stream.
Yeah.
But when you don't, honestly, as someone who's involved in looking at plans and knowing what's going on, there's nothing that jumps out right now, and this year or next, it's going to be a huge revenue maker for us, right? There's no point being developed. It's coming.
New growth, yeah.
Yeah, new growth is just,
Well, it does line up with 26, 27.
yeah.
Yeah.
But that's kind of how I modeled it. And like I said, you could be looking at 6, but I don't know when that's going to be.
Yeah.
So
So that kind of speaks to a question I had, which is, in your experience, what's the difference in number of calls to a construction site versus the number of calls to an apartment building? So, just...
yeah. So your calls to a construction site aren't that many because OSHA. We have a very excellent building department here. So you have an electrical inspector, plumbing, the building inspector, the local. They're always on site. Apartment buildings, like for instance, Boxwood Drive, when that went up. Oh my God, you're gonna be so busy. Well, it depends who lives there. Like there's some very sick people that move in there, and we go there a lot, and then they move, or they move on. So, and it varies. It's the same thing with Life Care Center. Sometimes they get some very sick people in there, and we go there a lot in transport, and other times, most people are there for rehab, and they don't require it. So it runs in spurts. So it's hard to quantify. An apartment building would depend on if they put in an assisted living complex somewhere, then yeah, that's definitely going to generate more activity. But if it's over 55, if it's just like Boxwood Drive, it's whoever. Sometimes you get some sick people in there. We had, unfortunately, like a young man who had to go to Tufts or Children's. So each time he called 911, off they went to Boston. And again, half my staff gone for an hour and a half, one way. It's that kind of stuff that makes it hard. And then they move. So the apartment side of it, with what they're proposing, will definitely pose a challenge, depending on the types of apartments and depending on who moves in there.
That's why I asked you about
the
the
demographic.
2030 model, if this kind of lines up with it. Because that,
But you're not necessarily seeing a spike until folks are moved.
Oh, yeah.
Okay.
No. During construction, not really. Like for instance, the one next to Town Hall, one night we had, in the middle of a snowstorm, a machine caught on fire, but it was in the snow. But with all that construction going on, we haven't been there for an accident, per se. But that's a good question, but it is, it depends on who moves in,
Sure.
kind of thing.
Great, thank you.
So I have a couple of questions. One, I think last year we were talking about applying for a SAFER grant to hire firefighters. Did we not get that, or?
We are in limbo. I have nothing from the federal government. Not as any.
September's usually when you find out, though, right?
It was supposed to be June. And so no one has received notifications. They haven't started awarding it. Do you know anyone that works for the federal government? He can tell you how it goes, Oh, sorry, Gary. I wasn't sure about that. Because I'm trying to get an ambulance bill from my mother through Medicare right now. I know all about it. But no, there's been no notification one way or the other.
Okay, so we're still potentially in line for that, we just don't know.
We just don't know, because they haven't started awarding them.
Okay.
well, even with or without it, this is
And,
next May, so
Oh,
we'll
yeah,
know by then regardless.
and can you comment a little more on what you can do with 5 firefighters versus 4 on duty at a time? Because
So-
it doesn't seem like you'd send one out by himself, so it's, What do you do with the 5th?
Well, the 5th stays in town. So, for instance, one thing we could do is with 5 people, and depending on the type of call, let's just focus on medicals, because they're my biggest, most prominent call. So, my plan, so soon we'll have one shift of 5. So it's a good way to, like a petri dish, to try and figure out what we're gonna do. And there'll be 3 paramedics on that shift, a lieutenant and a senior firefighter. My plan is to have a vehicle such as, I don't know, the new pickup truck I have. So we get a call at the 191 Foster Street for a person with low O2 or something to that effect. The pickup truck, the 2 paramedics in the ambulance respond. The fire truck stays in the station for cuts down on fuel usage, wear and tear, et cetera, et cetera. Then a second medical comes in. So instead of them racing back down the street to get the second ambulance to go to the call, I have 2 people there to go on the call. And the third paramedic, if he's not in the pickup, can come back and meet them, and I have 2 staffed ambulances of paramedics. So that's one benefit to the 5. If presently, let's say like a mutual aid call to a neighboring town. Our present standard operating procedure is if Acton calls us to cover their station, 3 people go, 1 person stays back. If the engine then moves up to the fire, the person in the station takes the service vehicle and meets them on scene. If we're called directly to the fire, then all people on shift go, and we send out a station coverage call and hope someone comes back. With 5, I'll have 1 person back. So that 1 person means when I have another call, such as a medical, and I have to call Westford for their ambulance because I don't have 2 people to staff the ambulance, I now have someone from Littleton that can start patient care. And I don't have a mutual aid town coming in and there's no one from Littleton there. So that's why 5 works. And I can tell you in 2018, having a 4 was like the greatest thing ever. And it's just time to grow. It really was. Having 4 was like, oh my God, we got 4 now instead of 2. So we can send 2 people in the engine, they can help lift patients, and now we're at the point where all they're doing is like clearing that one, coming to get the ambulance and going to the next one. And that's why 5 works better than 4.
Okay, thank you.
I appreciate the fact that you've looked a few years out. You've given us a good vision, a good, something we bite into, and there's no surprises. This is what you, as the leader of this department, have presented to us, have presented to your membership, and I very much appreciate you laying this out there for us. Now we just got to figure out how to make it happen.
Yep. I mean, it's not an easy task, but again, I can't stress enough that we're just seeing the back-to-back calls are becoming like alarmingly high, and I don't know why. I really don't. It just, you can almost count on it. You hear over the radio the 911 ringing in the background, and the next thing you know, the Z-Tron goes off and we're going to another medical. We had 3 in a row today, so it was like even better, which means I had to go. So, anything else? Thank you again for your time. I appreciate it. I think it's important that, that the department knows that we're trying to put our best foot forward, and we're really trying to do right by the department. I think that's crucial.
Okay. I think I'm going to make a point that I definitely want to come by and talk to you a little bit more about the captains, just that the model and what that, more about that job and what that is going to entail. Maybe even talk to a couple of lieutenants, kind of in their minds too.
You got to come down at food
just
time.
for my own, just like kind of.
Well, if you come down, we'll have a call and they'll all leave. So you can
plenty of food.
No,
yeah, but do you want to come? Breakfast is a good time, depending on which shift's working. Dinner's like always there.
Okay.
So, but yeah, you're always more welcome to come down to the fire station. I'd love for you guys to
I don't like to interfere with business though, because I know.
No, it's like.
I hear on the scanner how busy you guys are. So.
Yeah, no, I know you're Kevin's. I know you're listening.
Well, I hear it from someone's room. Not mine,
Yeah,
but.
no, I hear you. Great.
Yeah.
Thank you very much.
All right.
Thank you, Tom.
All right.
Thank you guys for being here as well. We appreciate you. Thank you.
Thank you. Thanks, Ryan. You've got one more thing coming up, right?
Yeah. I mean, I can stand it.
Okay.
Yeah. I think actually I could probably speak to this. So the request before you that there has town meeting established a few years back a special injury leave indemnity fund to pay for expenses related to replacement services for injured firefighters. So as Interim Chief Clancy mentioned, Chief Connor's been out for an extended period since January, and what we're estimating here at $155,000 is the cost for Chief Clancy to replace that in that role for the entire fiscal year '24. So basically, we would do a retro on in terms of a change charge for his salary, and we were just basically putting this in place, which then allows the fire department to also now move forward with the filling of the deputy chief position. And basically, this is something we talked to Intern Chief Clancy about, and trying to figure out a way to both hire the new person who came on at the beginning of FY24 in that position, as well as providing the chief, as you mentioned, interim deputy chief Ray has moved on. So really trying to move forward and trying to provide more of a permanent backup here for the chief.
And this is coming from a fund that currently has, is it 300,000?
Right, yeah, I believe that's it.
We established that, so, okay.
Right.
And that would be one that we replenish
At some
the
point,
next cycle.
It was set up after Scott Holt got injured.
Okay.
For that.
But that's something we've decided to keep, about 300,000 is a comfortable level that we think we want to keep in there, is that?
Right.
Yeah, and then through
and
free
it's-
cash, we can replenish it. as
Right,
free cash comes in.
and that's something we as we go through that process for next year, how we have to deal with it. But right now, the request before you is to transfer $155,000 out for all of the FY24 expenses for.
No, it's a great use of the fund. I just think, who thought of it? That's
Actually,
that's out of the
this
box.
The guy that keeps on retiring and sees guys on the desk up there, and I'm not gonna name names, but don't golf with him, he's a pretty good putter.
Okay.
Takes a lot of money.
That's right. So, and I think this is something that, in working with Steve, that he suggested as a potential way to address this interim issue.
Otherwise, it would have, it just, within my budget, I wouldn't have been able to.
Right.
And this frees up operational funds so you can use it
Yeah,
another.
because of where the other
Yeah,
funds are going
that's
right.
right now. Yeah.
All right, look for a motion on this one, if nobody has any more.
No questions.
discussion.
Thanks, Tom.
Nothing, Mark?
Nope.
Okay.
Move the select board vote pursuant to Mass General Law, Chapter 40, Section 111F, to transfer $155,000 from the Special Injury Leave Identity Fund for the payment of expenses for providing replacement services for injured firefighters.
Second.
Moved by Mark, seconded by Matthew. All those in favor, say aye.
Aye.
All right.
Thanks, Tom.
I think your business.
Should I ask for money now?
No?
No?
We'll get to capital
I
later.
want to be Liz and just get money. Thank you very much.
Thank you all.
Thank you. Good update. It's nice to have a plan. All right. All right, looks like we're coming into Parks and Recreation. Parks and-
guys, thanks.
Good night.
Thank you. Thank you.
Back and forward, everyone leaves.
You've cleared the room.
The room's yours.
It's mine. Hello. How's everybody doing?
Hi, how are you?
I will try to be relatively quick.
So I will give what we have on our agenda for you. It's Parks and Recreation, Community Education, update on Littleton High School tennis courts project, corporate field lights, and memorandum of understanding between the Parks and Recreation Community Education Commission and Select Board. That's why you're here tonight, I hope?
Yeah.
Okay, all right.
Yeah. So Saul did have to run over to FinCom because we're meeting about the same thing at the same time. So, yeah, so maybe he'll be back, maybe he won't, I'm not sure. So I'll go ahead and get started with the high school tennis courts first, since that's something you guys are pretty well briefed upon. So where we are currently with this project is we have reviewed the location at the actual high school. And we've met with the school department many times, athletic director. We had money left over after Ryan and I had worked on the Cooper Farm site to work with places. And so we had a design that was set up focused on adding 2 more courts. Wow, that's just really loud, sorry. Adding 2 more courts to the tennis courts that are currently at the high school. So we finished that. We have brought that forward to CPC, and they have deemed this to be an eligible project that they would like to move forward with, but there's a few other action items that we need to do before they determine how much funding they want to put towards this project. So the total amount that we have was $734,000, and this is for essentially we would be putting in. It would be 4 new courts. So we would be removing the old tennis courts that are there. They're actually pretty well used. There's a lot of cracks and things that in the future we're going to have to look at replacing those soon anyway. So this would be able to allow us to put 4 courts in there. And the purpose of that, just for anyone that's watching and is curious, we're going to be losing the 2 courts that are here at Town Hall. So that would allow the town to maintain the 4 facilities that we currently have in town instead of just going down to 2.
You're turning it around according to the picture, okay.
Yep,
I see.
yep.
Nice. Better use of space.
So, and we've looked at all kinds of different configurations, and this was definitely one that allowed us to use less fencing, to be able to try to keep a little bit more of that parking lot. We are in conversations with the schools, and that is still a location that they'll need to park buses. So we have to figure out how that's all going to still work within that space that we have. So where the islands currently are, that's something where we would talk about removing those islands. We still have to figure out what the stormwater management would need to be to replace those islands. But that's something that, we would be looking at working with Highway Department on coming up with a game plan for that. Currently where we're at is the school committee is going to have a meeting on September 14th. So at that meeting, they're going to hopefully approve the construction of this specific court, this project, to take place on school property. And also the CPC has asked if the school would either make a contribution to this build, since this would be on school property, or if that's something that they cannot do because obviously their budget is set for this year, so it's not like they have extra surplus to just kind of add to this. If they would consider parceling off that section of the school property and giving that back to the town for the town to be able to maintain that in the future.
Are they going to vote on that? It's being voted on as well?
Yep,
Oh, okay.
yep. So, well, whether they take a vote on that, I don't know, but it's part of the discussion that we're going to talk to. Okay. We had asked them to discuss that and come up with a decision on that.
Alicia, could you just clarify,
Sure.
what's the point of that? Is the school couldn't still own it, or what's?
The school could still own it. The CPC was looking for, since we're putting, the CPC fund, the bucket is specifically for recreation that we would be using. So they would want to know that this is something that is going to be insured for use of the entire community, not just the schools. So they were looking for either the schools to be able to put some funds towards
I'm not sure if that's how
paying for it.
insurance works, but I mean, if you insure it, you insure it. So
It was
I just,
something that
as
the
a nuance.
CPC had asked for, so that
Yeah,
was
as a
part of their
nuance, I don't know if
discussion.
that's necessarily important in
Is it
terms.
insurance or assurance?
Ah,
Well,
Yeah,
if
it's,
the school's willing to give up the land and make it part of the continuous piece to the Indian Hill facility.
Yeah, but the 2 tennis courts have been there and have been open to the public
They have.
since they've been created in 2001.
Yeah. I mean, the schools use it so, one tiny piece of season, really.
yeah.
And for a very limited part of time for practices and
Right.
interactions.
Yeah, I mean,
And
I'm just
that's
trying to
something-
understand what the objective is, whether it be town-owned or, money is the same thing. It's,
No, sure.
money's coming from the school, it's coming from, from the town, so
Sure.
it's, so.
I think the point that the CPC was trying to make is that for them, there is a difference between there being money that's going towards community recreation versus just, paying for the school. So I think they wanted to see that there was some sort of collaboration that was being willingly entered into, I suppose, if you will, between the schools and the town.
Okay.
So, All right, so FinCom is meeting currently right now, so Saul is over there having a discussion with them. And then the CPC, the next CPC meeting following up will be at the end of September, so we'll discuss the final amount that they are going to go forward with funding. And then hopefully that this would be on the town meeting in November for the CPC funding.
Can I ask how the current sewer project affects this?
What do you mean?
Well, the current pumping station.
Yep, it's gone.
It's gone now?
It's gone.
Yeah.
Okay.
So it wouldn't at all.
They can-
All of that work has already been
So
completed.
there's no work in the tennis courts any
There is
longer?
not. Yep, that's
Okay.
correct.
I'd like to understand the timelines a little better
Yeah.
on the priorities for what's being built. So new pickleball courts versus tennis courts.
So at this point, if we get a chance to go back and look at that photo, that photo was part of like a bigger concept. So what we would be looking at specifically for this project is just the tennis courts and the parking lot area. So nothing that's considering the pickleball or anything to do with 36 King Street.
So that's a future plan.
Correct, yeah. So what the ultimate goal would be is that, we'll work with the school department and we would have to paint some pickleball lines on the tennis courts that we put in to be able to kind of allow that space to still exist because, we do have a lot of people that use the pickleball or the lines here for pickleball to play quite often.
Yes.
We So that would, those courts on the side there in that photo is a different project that would be in the future.
And that's
some point.
later.
Yeah.
This is to keep the tennis people from fighting the pickleball people at the end of the day.
We'll see.
They're a tough group.
Can you fight a regulation game? Can you play a regulation game with pickleball lines on a tennis court?
Yes, you can. Yeah. Any other questions?
More questions on this project? Nope.
No.
I do believe I've
Makes
seen
sense.
it. It is on the warrant. I did.
Yeah, the draft, yeah, both of them.
So what happens if CPC votes to fund less than the 736,000?
Well, we can get started and we'll figure out how to get the rest. So USTA has some grants. There hasn't been a whole lot of movement on that, but that's something I can push a little bit harder for. I don't know. We'll have to figure that out. I feel like in the conversations that we've had with them that they are amenable to do that. I think it's something that they would want to bond out. They're not, excited about the idea of just like emptying all the coffers. So that is something that they would be looking to do, would be to bond that possibly.
And can you talk a little bit about the path by the tennis courts between Indian Hill?
Yeah, so that is a concept of just being able to get in and out safely, if you will. If you've ever gone in and out of 36 King Street, it can be a little bit dicey. So originally when we had looked at this space and what we could potentially do with it, we had talked about putting a one-way street that would bring you could come in to 36 and then you'd be able to exit out onto the high school road path that would bring you out to the stoplights, and it would be much more safe enter and exit than it currently exists.
I don't think that's part of this budget.
It is not. Well, actually, that part of it, they said that it is, but I don't think that we'll be able to have enough funds to do that. So, what I'm looking at is obviously we want to get the full tennis courts done and the parking lot situated. Yeah, if we're able to do that, that would be great. But I don't see, with the prices of everything right now, that we'd really be able to get that in there.
But with it drawn in there, the possibility would exist that we could do something internally with just start back and
Right.
DPW. And
Yep.
Okay. All right. What's next?
Okay. So the next one that we have is, this is our solution that we've kind of come up with to deal with the decreasing of athletic fields that we've had for many reasons. Sewer project, we've taken off some of those fields offline. So that's something, they did sod that recently, which is great. They did sod part of the infield, so that's kind of an interesting thing. So we'll have to get that fixed, but it's still going to take time for those roots to grow, so that's something that we're not going to see this season to be able to use. And depending on the weather and how everything takes, potentially it could need to be, I mean, typically when we either reseed or resod fields, we try to let like it rest for an entire year so that it's actually, well taken care of. Something like sod, you can actually come onto that field quicker. So we just kind of have to wait and see, but it could be anywhere between the earliest this spring into next fall. So, we're still not going to be able to use that space as we go into this season. Some of the issues, it's like multifaceted, which is always very interesting when it comes to this. The schools have also voted to delay the start of the high school. So what that has done now is it delays the start of after-school activities, including sports. And at this point, there's limited time that's going to be available on some of the fields because the schools get that first priority. So a lot of the sports, youth sports organizations in town, we have to try to work with them to figure out how we're going to schedule them onto the different spaces that we have. So one of the fixes that is something we were looking at doing in the long term anyway, was being able to install LED lights at Kerper Field. And so this is something that we could do relatively quickly. They can be, honestly, if we had all of the materials here and we were able to put it in, I think we could probably do it in less than a week would be my guess. So that's something that, would be able to extend the play life from, sunset, right? That stops us to go all the way that we would normally operate in the summertime, which could be 8 a.m. to about 9 p.m. And that would get us through the fall and spring season and be able to allow enough space for us to accommodate with some tweaks, but we could accommodate and be able to get the youth sports organizations out there.
You mentioned if the materials were on site.
Yeah, so like we order them and they're like physically here.
Sure.
I think the actual build process would be relatively quick.
Sure.
So, yeah, so
Have
once
you done
we order
any
that.
research on the pipeline for that material? I know some materials are hard to source these days.
Yeah, so we have been working with Musco Lighting, which is part of Sourcewell, and they actually have all of the stuff in stock currently, which is really helpful. So that is something, as far as the supplies of it, I'm not concerned about that at this time, yeah.
I would note, this has to be publicly bid, so we couldn't just go to Musco and do that. That's, yeah,
Okay.
there's a whole bidding process. It has to be a prevailing wage project, so I think just some caveats.
Even with just the equipment?
Someone's got to install it, so there's got to be crane operators, there's got to be,
Right.
so all of that's labor, and that's prevailing wage. So I mean.
Well, the crane operation is something that we are getting a company to be able to donate that time. So with the materials, then we would just be looking at that from Musco.
It would still be publicly bid, and it can't be just through one vendor.
Okay.
So that just, those are caveats in terms of, as one of my many hats as a chief purchasing officer. I mean, it's just, so, where you looked at, in the case of the tennis courts, there was design, there's contingency, and what places have put together. There are probably other expenses related to this that, while I appreciate the enthusiasm, I think there are some other caveats here that would, I think, just to answer your point, Karen, that it's not just something you just grab off the shelf. it's a process and something.
it's like
It's a
anything
good
we
point
do.
of information, though. If one supplier,
Yeah.
if we know one supplier has it, that's a good indication that it might not be a major problem to
Right.
source.
Right.
Yeah.
Just to kind of piggyback on what Ryan said, during the alumni field process, we had a lot of people that were willing to volunteer time and their company to do some of the work, and we weren't allowed to use it because
Okay.
because of prevailing wage, like the owner of the company
Yeah.
could offer his or her time, but
Not the employees.
And
exactly.
Chuck's right, it's one of those few exceptions to the prevailing wage law, is that the owner,
Right.
it's a single owner department, otherwise the way that Mass General Law is written is to ensure that prevailing wages are paid on all of these.
I don't necessarily agree with it, but it's
I
what the
just-
rules we have to play by.
Right.
Yeah,
Yep.
that's right, that's right.
There you go.
Sorry, one more. It
Yeah.
was this project, I think, that you said that it was mentioned the DPW said that they would dig the ditches.
Yeah, so actually Light and Water.
Light and Water.
So that was something that they had, we walked the space with them, and that was something that they agreed that they'd be able to dig those trenches to be able to lay the conduit. So that, yeah, they felt very comfortable in doing that.
So we're
And
exempt
that's
from that.
right?
Correct.
Right, well, that's it, but, right, if it's the DPW or, any other town employees that are doing labor, that's.
We're exempt from any type of.
Right, and I think that was the estimate was already presuming that work would be taking place separately.
Or if we used light and water poles to mount the lights.
Well, that's,
on.
if they had cranes, they would do that in a second, but yeah, they don't. Not anything that would help with this, so.
Why Kerper? Why not the field at the middle school?
Because this is going
Or
to
the
be.
elementary school?
I'm
Or
sorry?
Why not the field around the track?
The track is honestly
Inside the
sorry?
The field inside the track?
Yeah, that is a highly modified space that we really do not want to be using that for different, that's kind of like an open space that we're using because we have to. It's not really a space that would be an ideal place to actually have fields located. It's kind of like we're also using the side of the grass on the middle school for lacrosse. That was never intended to be a field that's meant to just be
The
grass.
field
at
inside
school.
the track was meant to be a soccer field. It always was a soccer
And
field.
Our kids play there.
Yeah, I mean,
So
it's a
at
regulation
this,
size
this
soccer field.
time, the lacrosse girls have kind of taken over that space, and that is something that they do have to modify that field about 30 feet. So,
As for the field next to the middle school, we invested a lot of money to make that.
I know we have.
Never was designed.
It never was
it the
designed to
parking
be
lot
that.
For the construction
Yes.
site of the.
Yeah, for sure. And Highway's done an awesome job on that. They really honestly have taken great care of it. So Kerper is just one of those spaces where it's easily accessible and used for many different sports. And that's something that the school can also use that for night games, things like that.
I thought Kerper was only used for soccer. When did that change?
I mean, we've been using it for lacrosse for the high school for the last couple of years because we've had a lack of fields.
I thought the whole point of Alumni Field was soccer, that lacrosse tore up turf fields, and that grass fields, and we needed the turf for lacrosse.
There are certain times where there just hasn't been availability, and we have worked with the school department to be able to have games out there.
Striped it.
And you guys are getting really deep into this. This is a good conversation. Mine was more related to the lights. I'm always concerned.
Yeah.
It seems like wherever we put lights up,
Well, that's why I said around the track, there's no houses
Neighbors,
there,
yeah.
and there's already a precedence of
But
having
I-
lights there, so
I do
it's
like-
much a better,
that picture is
Yeah,
fantastic.
that's-
So, and that was
That's-
one of the main pieces that I definitely wanted to be able to show, that there is a huge difference between the LED lights that exist now compared to the lighting that we've seen in the past, and they're very directional. So in the picture that you're looking at, you can see that the light is directed down to be able to light the field, but it's protected in a way that it's not going to illuminate outwards. So that just the engineering that goes behind it is amazing, and they've really created some fantastic products out there.
That's
So-
something, I mean, this might, I think if something like this, we push something that's forward without actually reaching out to that community, which
I
is
did.
basically New Estate.
Yeah.
and saying, hey, let's have a meeting.
Yep. So on August 16th, I sent out letters to the whole community.
Okay.
And we actually have a public hearing set on September 12th, which is at the
ahead
Park
of-
Commission meeting.
Okay.
So that will be next Tuesday.
And kind of demonstrate this lighting.
100%. Yeah. Mhm.
Okay.
So yeah, we thought about all of that stuff. I mean, it's really important to be able to make sure that if anybody has concerns that we're, reaching out to people, letting them know. We've had the project up on our project page on the website. So, yeah.
All right, so realistically, something like this timeline is a little bit long. I know, it sounds like you're chomping at the bit, because you're right, something like this would take probably a week if once it was up and running.
Right.
But knowing the procurement process and putting it out to bid,
We
now
know
you're
it's
fighting
gonna
to
be
get it in
spring.
before the ground's frozen.
Right.
I mean,
Realistically, I don't see that happening.
Yeah.
I would say this is something that, and I think even put in my letter, we would have to try to sit down with Mike Lynn, the athletic director, and figure out what I'm sorry, I'm slipping over to the tennis courts. My bad. That doesn't work. But anyway, I do think this is something that we wouldn't see happening probably until spring. We would want to do it earlier in spring if possible. But yeah, realistically.
Who actually owns Kerper Field? That's
Light and Water, so that's also
Light
on,
or Water? Because they're different entities.
well,
Yeah.
LELWD.
No, well, the reason is, if
Yeah.
if we're worried about the school department owning the tennis courts, then we should be concerned about the light department owning this, because they're even less of a school, town entity than the school.
But if they give us,
It's yeah.
yeah.
But the
devil's
reason we were
advocate.
concerned, the reason we got that into that conversation for the tennis courts was because of CPC funding.
Well,
I
this
assume that, is CPC funding going to be used for this?
So this is CPC funding, but they're, I'm trying to think.
we're gonna need some time to work out those details.
Yeah.
That's a good question, because that does.
I mean,
there might have to be an
ultimately,
MOU
yeah, it's
or
always a
something, I don't
concern.
know, But,
So,
yeah.
yeah, I mean,
I mean, there's a field there now, it just doesn't have lights. So
Right.
what's the agreement,
yeah.
right? So but you're right, light, we found out the difference between light and water.
Do we have an estimate on how much these lights will cost
So it will be $200,000.
to operate?
Oh, to operate? No, I don't have that estimate, but I'll happily get that for you. Yep.
And that's when we could probably look at the football fields and kind of get an idea, although those lights,
They were relamped.
they were.
And they were repositioned, but they're not going to be as efficient as
The new-
brand-new LEDs.
Yeah.
But I'd caution you on making the statement that LEDs are less invasive, because there's literally an article, or a report this morning on both NPR and WBZ,
Hey.
saying that a lot of folks are complaining that there's more of a glow in the sky. If you look at maps of, especially the East Coast, with the insurgence of LEDs for being used for all the right reasons.
Right.
But the impact on the night sky is.
The LEDs are a lot more blue than everything else, and then they reflect differently and
glowing more,
cause
yeah.
other issues.
So just have that
Sure.
in your
Yeah, I hear you.
quiver.
All right, so we have more discussion that we had on this. So we'll have to put some of this on. I mean, I'd like to see what obviously, September 12th is a public
Yep.
hearing, so that we'd like to probably have to come back to this at a later date with all that, what comes out of that. I mean,
Right.
Maybe there's something, right?
And have the commissioners, light or water, voted on the
That's on
use,
their next meeting.
which
Yeah,
is
these are the
the
things we're gonna have to table.
14th
Yeah.
or
Says the 26th.
26.
26th.
Okay. All right, so we have. All right.
Thanks.
Thank you.
We really kind of need it solved
That's
probably.
the hard fun.
The MOU stuff.
Right.
I mean,
So
Deal
if
no
they
deal.
don't vote for it, we're pulling it off the warrant? Because the warrant will be closed before their vote.
So if Light and Water says no, I mean, that would be.
or if they're
No,
not
it would-
supporting it from their funds.
And the question, I mean, the question, first question is whether or not we have adequate, whether 200,000 is enough for that, which
Right,
is,
and only that's gonna come when we get the bids and we figure out. exactly.
Right, right. I
So
mean,
it's more of a
there's,
full-
There's an estimate.
again,
Annual town meeting.
the prevailing wage aspects and things of that, I think need to be considered in terms of providing an appropriate number for town meeting.
Yeah.
And then if part of the presumption is that LLWD is going to be doing some of the work with us,
Trench work.
which is great, but if they don't vote to support it, then that means there's other expenses we'd have to undertake, presuming, of course, they're still allowing it because it's their property, too, which is another question.
So a good point of reference, when the school brought forth the moving the lights at the alumni field, and that project, I think, was 150,000, wasn't
It
it?
was more. Yeah, it was-
And that was just, so this 200 might be a low number?
I think it's light, and I mentioned that to you the other day. when we
Right, you
met.
did, yep.
It's considerably less than what we were looking at, and we ended up gave money back to the town, which may have enabled us to do that, but we just didn't feel confident in going forward with it, and we didn't want to go over the $4 million mark.
Okay.
Yeah, it's good. Point of reference. I know you don't want to hear this, but it sounds like this project is more of a annual town meeting, just so we can get all the ducks in a row and get a lot of these questions answered.
It's one we might have to push. I mean, I don't think we have to pull it. I just think it's we might know come October that you know what, we're gonna have to, we don't have numbers, so we can't go forward until May.
Yeah.
Town meeting, that's all. I mean, if we can't get, you have to have numbers for town meeting.
For sure.
So
So
that's-
I would ask if, we can at least leave it on there and give it, a couple weeks just to see how these other meetings go and, yeah, we discuss.
Okay.
Okay.
All right, well, the other discussion I wanted to talk, I wanted Saul here for this discussion of the
Right.
MOU. I don't know how much you've been involved at all. with
Not
with the
much.
commissioners.
Yeah, but I can see if I can text him and see.
If he's coming back
anything
over, I can
over.
table this till the end of we can push it.
And Saul has reached out to us to try
Yeah.
to set something
Yes.
up. It was like the end of last week,
Yeah.
trying to get us to get together, and the weekend just didn't work out. And so we are working to try to have a
Right.
conversation with the chairs and vice chairs.
Yep.
And then would bring it, to the
Okay.
full bodies of
Gotcha.
each board.
Okay.
All right, thank you.
Thanks.
Thanks,
Thank you.
Alicia.
All right, I take it you're giving the IT update, Ryan?
Right.
Information technology overview of recent updates to the Town of Littleton Town website.
Just
Thank you,
about to
Alicia.
get there.
Thanks, Alicia.
Thank you.
I'm sorry, I'm going the wrong way. Just give me a minute just to catch up in the presentation. Okay, so as the select board is aware, we now have a new town website. We've received a lot of good feedback so far about this, primarily on the back end in terms of what staff's been doing and the processes involved with trying to update the website. It's intended to have a better interface with residents and have being able to use it on mobile devices as well. That has helped. We've also added a chatbot feature to it, and based upon and giving options for people to search either on the website but also in the document archive. If you remember, we have scans of data as well in our files that I can't remember the vendor name, but basically it's the
Civic.
It's,
Civic Plus?
It's not Civic. Well, Civic Plus is the provider, but we have based on. I can't remember the vendor's name, but basically scans of all of our older documents that we have that are
Microfiche.
basically. It's the microfiche
Iron Mountain?
piece that it's not Iron Mountain, but so that's another
Sounds like-
place to do searches on as well. So, but again, so far
Laserfiche.
Laserfiche. Thank you. That's it. Thank you. Yes. So, so between the chat box, the new search piece, and then just the improved navigation of this, I just wanted to. This is really more letting the board. Making the board aware of these changes, but also the public who may not have gone to our website recently. So some of the new components of the site that we wanted to focus on was an I want to feature, commonly asked questions that we have, like how do I register to vote, how do I view the library events calendar, how do I apply for an abatement, things like that, common questions that people have based upon actual data that we've received, and now trying to organize our page to reflect that. So I think it's like a top 10 that's there. We're also putting our latest news in these sort of little boxes here in the front that allows us to be able in one view look at multiple pieces, where I think in the prior website you'd really be looking at maybe the latest update, but not necessarily anything else that anything maybe had maybe two at most other little tidbits in there in terms of other updates that are provided. So new format that we think looks good, and some improvement on that end. Town calendars, we have public meetings, community events that are there, and that we I think is an improvement. We had both of those elements in the last website, but it's a little bit more functionality with this. We have the capacity to search and filter for specific calendars, and also allowing for community events to be added from all of our departments. Finally, we have the social media scroll, and I think one of the select board members had asked about that, and so we put that in as well. A lot of these things that we had in, the old website had it. The new website is just making things a little bit more functional, a little bit more customer friendly, and also making it, again, easier for us on our end in terms of updating things, and being able to make updates to the site as well. You may remember this. So this is what we have at the bottom of the homepage. So basic things that people would typically ask about, including town hall hours. We've put up a page to meet your select board. You've all provided bios and pictures for that. And of course, as we kick off at every select board meeting, signing up for the general website notifications. And that allows you to pick and choose from what you want to get in there. So say, for example, if you just want to hear about planning board agendas, you can click on that, get those updates as they come through. Or if you want any other notifications, like things that we put up on a regular basis, the news part that we had just shown you, you can get that. So you can pick and choose, and also go back on the site, and if you want to opt out of those things, you can do that as well. So, that's another sort of change and kind of user-friendly update for this as well. So, other additional features, we've made some updates to the agendas for and minutes center. So that also includes the video upload of live meetings. So there's when you look at like a line, you'll see where you can get the meeting packet, the meeting minutes, as well as the video for that meeting. We've put in an employment center that has some pre-populated forms for people to apply for positions. Bid center, they'll probably be putting something on tomorrow. They're using that more actively and letting the broader public know about new bids that we have coming out. Actually, what's going to be going to bid center tomorrow will be the construction bidding packet for the senior center. So it's coming up and moving along. And of course, all of the other elements of town government, you want to get links there to town code, updates on past town meetings and updated town meetings, and of course, our annual town reports, which are now also digitized, and we have that capacity as well. So that's pretty much it. It's just more providing the board of a reminder of the changes that we've made to let you know that we have received, again, some good feedback, and that's both externally and internally in terms of using the site. And my kudos go to the implementation team, Tom and Nancy in IT, and also Steve Venuti was very helpful as well in providing another set of eyes on this to get us to this point. So it's just really, I just wanted to give that update to you and let you know about those changes. That's it.
That's a lot of changes in a short amount of time. The site hasn't been active that long.
Right.
A lot of feedback.
And it took a lot of, I think Nancy and Steve really put a lot of time in on the front end in terms of the look and feel. I mean, just even making decisions about what button to use. Where should that button be? Website design is a part science, part art. And I think the team has put together is definitely an improvement over what we've had in the past and helps move the town forward. So my thanks to them.
Great, yes, thank you.
Yeah, good work.
Good work. Right. Town administrator updates, what do you have?
Right now, just plugging away we're going to be talking a little bit later in the special town meeting. I did make some updates on that in terms of what was in the packet, a couple additional items, including and this was my oversight, the CPC community increase from 1% to 2%, as well as putting a placeholder in there for any potential increases that we have for the Shaker Lane MSBA project regarding the design and the design and sort of preliminary planning on that project. So just to give folks an update on that, the subcommittee, which Chuck is a part of, I don't want to steal Chuck's thunder if he already had this on his list, okay. So, basically, we had 8 applicants. It was shortlisted to 3 for those interviews, and the selection was made by the Shaker Lane School Building Committee last Wednesday night in terms of how they wanted to proceed forward. So we're having our first conversation with the selected vendor in terms of negotiating a contract with them. So we basically have $700,000 set aside for the OPM and the design cost, and we have to kind of figure if that's going to be enough. I don't know when the $700,000 figure was arrived at, but there've been so many
Like everything.
increases in inflation in terms of the cost that I just want to have something as a backup should we need it. So. So that's pretty much all I have, Mr. Chairman.
I wonder what it would cost to build the pyramids today.
Yeah.
I think-
Will you use a prevailing wage, or?
Yeah, prevailing wage. Okay, thank you, Ryan. Let's go right around. Mr. Rambacher, do you have?
So Chuck and I participated in a meeting last week talking about the station area development for town meeting. The plan to put forth is to rezone part of the parcel at, what's the address,
46.
242?
245.
245 Foster Street.
Foster, yeah.
As the the MBTA zoning district, and to leave the rest of the parcel as it's currently zoned, which would be industrial.
So it's what, 10 or 11 acres?
It's like 10 to 12 acres in the MBTA district, and the other 18 remained as is.
And what's the benefit of that?
Well, if we zone it as residential, that could be a full residential development. If we leave it the way it is, the developer can certainly put an industrial use in there. But they could also come back to us and look for a residential. If we sold it all residential, they would have 8 years based on.
Well, no, they've already put in a plan to do an industrial.
Right.
And they have an 8-year look back for the site as industrial. So even if we zoned it as the MBTA, they could still put in the industrial. There was talk about whether we should rezone the remaining port as residential or not. It was kind of a split decision. It was partially done because for expediency, we weren't sure that we could get everything in line, and everyone nodding up and down that residential was the right thing to do. The developer has agreed that they'll work with the town going forward on what happens to that remaining 18 acres. So.
I guess the only other question I found on that is I hate commenting on your member updates, but why that number? I didn't.
Why what number?
You picked out 11 acres. What was the?
Because
They have
the
to do at
number-
least 10.
In order to fit the
fit the
number of
120.
units.
Okay, good.
At the right density, we need 10 acres in
Gotcha.
order to fill out the quota.
But it
that
might
the
be
MBTA
11 or
asked for.
12 because of
Yeah.
perk.
But we
or
need
whatever.
150 units, and it's a minimum of 15 per acre.
So in order to meet the,
Got it.
Yeah.
Makes sense. Okay.
And Gary and I were at the senior luncheon with Senator Eldridge and Rep. Arciero. It was extremely well attended. I think,
Yeah, full house.
hamburgers and hot dogs brings everyone out.
They were gone by the time I got there, by the way.
Well.
So it was well attended. I was doing interviews for the school.
So thank you for them for hosting and everyone for showing up. So that's all I have.
Mr. DeCoste.
Two of the big lifts were the SLBC, the Shaker Lane Building Working Group or Committee or whatever we're called. Just to kind of piggyback on what Ryan had said, first of all, we've had multiple meetings and working towards narrowing down to 3 finalists, which we interviewed last week while the cookout was going on. But the MSBA was the one that helped us a year ago craft that number in order to go to town meeting and say, we need $700,000 for a feasibility study. Some of us might have thought that was excessive then, but the MSBA just published or sent a letter to to Superintendent Clenchey and to the committee saying that the average across the state for a school of what we're looking at, population that we're looking at, is 1.25.
Just for feasibility.
For a feasibility study. So with us having we've authorized $700,000 at town meeting. So we did have some conversation around, if we can get it into town meeting, what is the appropriate number? Do we go for the full 1.25? Do we leave it at 700? And because when we interviewed these folks, they knew what the number was. That went out in the bid, so they know how much we allocated at town meeting. One way of looking at that, however, is if they are going to do it for $700,000, the contractors and designers, their architects that they hire to do the feasibility, we might not get the more experienced contractors and vendors. We might get someone that'll say, yeah, I'll do it for that, but we might not get the same quality of work. So we're kind of debating over whether or not it's worthwhile to come back to town meeting and ask for more money in order to do the feasibility. And there are, Stephen Nudie's part of this group, and he's found ways that we could certainly do it, but you just hate going back like we've done so many times on so many projects. And
So what's the mechanism that's going to tell us that we have to? What's that point?
I think the mechanism would be, we sort of
The
started the
negotiations
first
are going on.
conversation
Okay.
with them tomorrow. I think we're
Oh,
scheduled to
okay,
meet
so
with
it's
them at
sooner
11.
than later. It's-
Right, and so get a sense from them about, where they're at, what, and we've got information, as Chuck had stated, that, what other communities have paid, so we'll have a basis for that negotiation. Obviously, we want to try to keep it at a minimum, but we also don't want that to impact the quality of work in any way. So, this is kind of a work in progress, but at least we've narrowed it down from 8 to 1 in terms of the number of vendors, and we'll see how that conversation goes.
Mark mentioned that we're in that Zoom with the MBTA consultant. I can't remember her name. I also met with Alicia and Tim last week as the PRCE liaison, just to discuss a lot of the stuff that that Alicia presented tonight, and also with Alicia to help her understand. She really doesn't have any. She has skin in the game, but she doesn't have any real say in the MOU. The MOU was designed so that the town administrator has the day-to-day management, operational control of different department heads. We've got MOUs with other department heads, even though the Park and Rec commissioners are the hiring authority.
So this is
We're just trying to iron that out, and that's some of the conversations we have to have. I mean, there's been an MOU in place since 2014, but there's the potential of being a sunset clause on that particular document. So we just want to revisit it and make sure that we've got things in place so that if Alicia doesn't know where to turn and it's 2 o'clock on a Thursday, she can't get a hold of the chair or the vice chair of the commission. Ryan is.
This is what we do with all the department heads that are appointed by other boards.
And with Maren, actually. Yeah,
And
so,
then-
yeah.
yeah.
Maren used to report to the planning board, but under Keith's tenure, we executed a lot of MOUs under Keith's tenure to try to wrangle in performance reviews, make sure they were happening, and Just
accountability.
day-to-day, accountability and day-to-day, like you said, operational control. So, good conversation with Alicia and Tim. Park and Rec is doing great things. And just, wanted to show them our appreciation and, give them some guidance as to some of the stuff they were presenting tonight. A lot of the same questions that were asked tonight, I asked them, but I expressed everything that I felt about it, and I'm still down that road, and happy to see what the residents say, the neighbors say, and happy to see what, when the commissioners vote, whether or not they're gonna allocate the funds to CPC, so that they'd be funneled through CPC from Light and Water, as I understand it. Whether or not the commissioners are going to allocate that money. So,
Did you want to gloss over anything today's meeting that we had? Is that anything that we need to?
certainly, I mean,
Nothing specific, but maybe kind of just talk about the gist of our continued,
yeah, so.
Ryan, yeah.
I think it's appropriate. Ashley's comments were.
Yeah, I think it's.
No,
not the
I wouldn't
comments.
say anything on, yeah, I mean,
This
he's
is-
talking about it in general.
Yeah, continued work to,
Collaboration with Lapoli companies. to
with the
talk
state to get money into Littleton.
Yeah, to look at
for these
additional-
projects that we're working on as far as housing and
Economic
economic development and sewer, just trying to really work with them, because we are doing a lot more than 90% of the communities in response to MBTA, in response to just the housing push that the state has pressed out of Boston and basically throughout all the towns. Littleton has definitely stepped up, and I think it was appropriate for us to continue to reach out to them for possibilities of more money through grants and things like that. So just
Most specifically for MassWorks grants, but the number of communities that are asking for MassWorks grants it's literally half of the communities
So to give an idea, $400 million were requested through MassWorks.
536.
536. There you go.
There's 92
million
available.
that is available to the towns. So that's what we're up against, and that's what we,
Yeah.
so that's more to come on that, but I think we had a good meeting, and it just kind of laid out what we're doing, the board's doing, and how we're supporting this economic development on the common and the sewering, and we kind of threw in the MBTA communities a little bit in that as well. So.
And that's an important part of it too, that the people we were meeting from the state understand, what commitments the town's making for housing. I mean, obviously that's important to them, but we're trying to say, well, we know it's important to you. We should be in many ways the poster child for what the state's doing. Mm-hmm. But as such, we also need assistance with that too. I mean, new sewer system requires
Infrastructure,
other things. We
everything.
talked about SRF, sort of loan fund.
Loan forgiveness?
Loan forgiveness potentially, I'm forgetting what the acronyms are. But, whatever we can do that would then, counter some of the costs infrastructure costs that we're putting in place to support these buildings. So, so that, I think it was a good conversation, and for the state to know what we're working on. And, Chuck and Gary did a great job of explaining that to them. And there may be other opportunities, because this is, one of many conversations that we have, and there's going to be funding opportunities, now, but also the years coming. So this is a long-term thing. We're just trying to establish those relationships and make sure that it's known about what we're committing to and where we need help.
Yeah, it's nice for them to recognize Littleton, and no offense against you or any of your predecessors, but when Keith was our town administrator, everybody knew when the guy in a bow tie showed up with curly hair, that it was Keith Bergman, and he represented Littleton. So that presence is not as prominent at the State House, and so it was good to, some of the folks that we saw are folks that we've met at MMA, and it's nice to see them, have some conversations with them, and it's beyond the Keith Bergman effect, the Cabanero effect.
Jeff, can I ask a question? Who is spearheading the grant proposal work for us?
Mainly it's Maren. Maren's been, let's say if we have a MassWorks grant in right now. So she was the one to put in the last application that's being considered. And I think we should be finding out in the next month or so. Month or so,
Yeah, they said by
yeah.
the end of the month
That's
they'll have
relative to the station area, though?
That's the MassWorks grant that we're waiting on, so.
For the station area, for Foster Street?
Well, I think this would be, I think this is more for the sewer, I think, with the MassWorks.
That was the awards one we just talked about is going to be awarded by the end of the month.
Yeah, so,
That's what that
but
was.
Maren basically, you know, and, you know, for the grant work, she's very busy, and this is why she partially is looking for the new position, which I think we've made an offer. I don't, and I think, you know, that's kind of still going back and forth. So giving her some sort of support on that, I think will help and provide hopefully some opportunities to seek even more grants moving forward.
But to the deeper root of that question, if we were able to hire, even on a consultative basis, someone to write grants for us, I think it would absolutely pay for itself. Because would reap the dividends.
I agree completely, but I seem to recall Sal promising help.
So we've gotten that, yeah, so,
materialized?
yeah, we've gotten that as far as crafting the language, because he's got people, one of his consultants is the person who wrote the MassWorks legislature. So she's really talented, and Rick Freiberg, who's presented before us, he's reviewed anything that we've sent in, and he knows how to word things and whatnot, and so that help has definitely, I think,
That's
just
happening?
just amongst
Yeah.
us, but yeah, that's a great question, and that support and help has been there from the polling companies.
Great.
So can we circulate the grant that we applied for and other ones that we are applying for when they go out? So,
What do you mean?
Where we can see them, you mean?
well, I mean, I didn't know we had a MassWorks grant in the works, and it would be nice when people come and ask me what's going on, that I can actually sound intelligent or
Well,
pretend.
that alone's not gonna get you.
Yeah, I know, but I didn't say be intelligent, I said sound. It would just be nice to know what these were, or have them documented somewhere, so.
Yeah, I'd love to see them too.
Yeah, it would be, if we had not a laundry list, but if we had a list of what we're going after. and
These are all electronic.
Even the safer grants, you know, any,
Oh,
what
yeah,
are we
I
going
mean-
after?
I mean, Amy Green
What's-
goes
what's
after
it-
grants
yeah.
too, right? It would be nice to know what all these were.
What's at risk? You know, what are we potentially gonna bring in?
Right,
Is there
these are
anything we can do to
electronically
help them?
submitted, correct?
Yeah, very much.
So it's more, you know, more of what's out there, what are we going after? I know we brought up I remember in a previous discussion, that just Alicia reminded me, when someone brought up the tennis court grants.
Yeah.
They were pretty significant the last time we
it's a
spoke
lot of
about it,
them,
so I was a little bit surprised that we haven't, you know, gone after.
Yeah, it would be nice to have somewhere that we could see what other grants we were going after, you know, who's,
Some database somewhere.
yeah, the synopsis, we apply for this grant on this date, we expect to hear from this,
Yeah.
the synopsis on what it's for, you know,
If we don't
And
get
the
it,
amount.
is there, you know,
in any status.
Help us to understand too, how much effort and time and energy we're putting into this, and in terms of quantifying future decisions on,
Yeah,
grant
Okay.
proposal writers.
I'll work with Ryan, we'll talk on our weekly.
kind of sounds like a conversation I had with Brady when he was applying to colleges. How many scholarship applications have you left? I need a list.
Yeah, it's the same type of thing.
Yeah,
Yeah.
exactly.
Right, I mean, with the fire one, I wouldn't even have known when that was supposed to have been.
I thought it was September, but he said June.
So, I mean, things like that we just lose track of.
Oh, the safer grant.
The safer
Yeah.
grant, thank you, yeah. All right,
I think similarly to the amount of mass work applications, the amount of funds, and the amount of available funds requested and available funds, I think Safer Grants is very much, we're in the same boat. We're fighting a lot of other communities for that,
Yeah.
you know, there's a lot of us kind of clawing and scratching to try to get some of that money.
So not last Saturday, 2 Saturdays ago, I attended a ceremony at the Littleton Historical Society, which was welcoming the Neshoba Praying Indian tribe back to Littleton. 280 years ago, Sarah Doublet, who passed away, was the last member of the tribe who lived in Littleton, and Strong Bear Medicine is moving into the Sarah Doublet house is renting it, and we had a lovely ceremony was very well attended. Mark was there. There was singing and gift giving and dancing, and it was a lot of fun, actually.
Smoke the peace pipe?
What's that?
Smoke the
We
peace
did
pipe?
not smoke the peace pipe. So, on the town administrator search committee, the job application is up. Michelle confirmed we have gotten a number of responses already. The working group has finalized the community profile, and we're meeting on Friday to look at the job description and begin revising that, as well as discuss screening questions and some of the details of the interview process. So that is moving forward quite nicely. On the sewer, Nick Lawler and I had a meeting today with EOHLC and the Housing Authority in Littleton to discuss the Housing Authority connecting to the town sewer. They had some questions about capacity, but generally I think it went really well. They were quite keen to connect. They recognize that it's going to save them money in the long run because they're not going to have to build a treatment plant basically for all those units there. So that was really encouraging, and I think it sounded like they need to get approval, but they're ready to go.
Okay.
So that was good.
No, that was a big,
Mind just ask a question?
Yeah, no, go ahead.
Was there any conversation around the betterment and the state paying the betterment? And
Oh, they're going to pay the betterment.
Yeah.
Yeah, oh yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, there was a lot of conversation about that.
Anticipated there was, but
And
it
the
just-
answer is, yes, you're
I
going to
just
pay the
wanted to sleep
betterment. I think it's 30 REUs.
yeah, that's quite a bit. So
Yeah,
that's a
yeah. I
huge.
mean, well, there's 58, there's like around 70
All in,
units.
both addresses, yeah.
Yeah, and it's a lot of them are single bedroom, but
So they're
there are a
halves.
couple of houses that are 4 or 5 bedrooms, and so, yeah.
Okay, good, thanks, Matthew.
The orchard. So the working group has been looking at the immediate needs of the orchard. One of the things that we were discussing is fire blight, which is, I guess, not that uncommon in orchards around. We have a number of trees that have the blight and they need to be taken out. The latest information we have is we should wait until it freezes, that the blight has run its course for this year, and we can have them pulled out after it freezes. So there's a possibility that we could get, I talked to Steve Yonley briefly about it, and he said that would be a good off-season thing for his crew to do. He also gave us some pointers towards tree services that they have used in the past. So.
Do you tag the trees? I mean, once the leaves drop, how do you tell something is fire
Well,
blight?
there are little galls on the bark. and
Oh,
the-
okay.
and the
We
stem. You
should
can
mark
see.
them so that, but isn't bulldozing the best way to do it because you bring up the whole root system and everything else?
The Will Picker talked to an orchardist who said you cut them down and then you grind the stumps and you mulch it, and that's the best way to get rid of them. But there's an ongoing conversation because the trees there are in the field below the house, which nobody thinks that any of those trees are really worth saving. So it might be.
Those are the youngest trees we have.
Well, those are the ones that are in the worst shape,
Just
I guess.
point of
so.
information, yeah.
And I know Karen is speaking to talk, has had an email thread with Ryan about an appraisal. So that's another thing we don't have, which we're looking to pay for, a professional appraisal of the entire property. So that if we do enter into a lease or we decide to try to find some other solution, we actually have a really good idea of, where we're starting from as far as valuation, so that we don't have to have a bunch of miasma of uncertainty about taxation and the other things. And I think the next thing on our plate is probably to decide what to do with the house. We're not doing any favors like letting it sit in the state it's in, and I don't know. Prevailing wage is obviously a problem, so we're gonna have to make some hard choices about that.
I mean, is the committee going to maybe have a recommendation anything from raising it
Yeah,
to full
I
restoration?
think we
That's
need,
kind
yeah,
of
we need to,
right,
we need to
everything
sit,
between.
yeah, we need to talk
Yeah,
about it.
okay.
And then the last thing I have.
Matthew, can I just jump in?
Yeah,
Just
go
a
ahead,
point,
yeah,
just
sure.
a piece of information that a lot of people have reached out and said, I heard it's going to be developed and it's going to be condos, it's going to be housing. It is, so that everybody knows, literally everything except for from Sarah Doublet Road towards Acton, towards Nagog, towards the lake, that's the only parcel that doesn't have a restriction on it. So that's the only parcel that could potentially be anything. And my feeling would be, if we were to package that up and lease it to somebody or sell it to somebody or whatever, with the restrictions on everything but that piece, that would be a piece I think that the town should hang on to, because I think there is a lot that we could do with that from, an open space perspective, whether it's an arboretum or walking trails or
There's no, I mean, I don't see any appetite for doing anything with that land except for agriculture, and preferably orchard. But
Public
you're,
use.
but no, definitely a public space, and definitely no development of any kind has ever entered into the conversation.
that whole parcel that I speak of that doesn't have the ag restriction on it.
Yeah.
Doesn't have, there's no orchard, there's no
Yeah.
apples, there's no fruit trees, there's no stone fruit.
It runs right down to the lake.
Yeah, exactly. It's a lot of woods.
Yeah.
It's the two structures, the barn and the small.
And the little.
Camp house?
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah,
And I think it's important to note that those restrictions run with the land. They don't
Absolutely.
run with the owner.
Perpetuity.
So no matter who owns that land, they will be subject to those restrictions.
if someone came in and schlepped down a bunch of money and we sold the whole thing off, everything that has an ag restriction on it would still have an ag restriction.
That's correct, yeah.
Correct.
And then I have a statement I want to read here, a short one. Recently, our town moderator appointed Jenna Brownson to the Finance Committee, an appointment that I am deeply troubled by. Jenna Brownson, not in my words, but in her own written words, admitted to behavior that can easily be defined as abuse of authority and sexual harassment of a subordinate employee, and attempted extortion while she was a member of the Select Board in 2014. Middlesex Superior Court records are publicly available, which contain Ms. Brownson's own written admission to this corruption. The town of Littleton should not allow a person with this track record to serve on our Finance Committee. In my opinion, it is irresponsible and fiscally negligent. To my knowledge, the Select Board has no authority in this matter. Whether or not there are legal grounds to deny her a seat on the statutory board, it is my personal opinion that she should not be allowed in any position of responsibility, especially over your tax dollars. I couldn't live with myself if I let this go without making sure that Littleton residents were informed. That's all I have to say. Thank you.
Thank you. Just to be clear, that's not a select board appointment?
That is not a select
Okay,
board
it was an
appointment.
appointment
Town
made
moderator.
by the
Yep.
town moderator.
That's right.
So, okay. Karen?
So, we're back to school. And I just wanted to thank everyone here in town who worked hard to make the schools start as smooth as possible. They had a lot of challenges, and it went beautifully from my perspective as a parent. And I just want to wish all the students and teachers and parents and staff a good start to the school year. That's about all I had.
Okay.
Even through all the issues on Russell Street.
That's, I was about to mention, thank you to the community for
Yeah.
tolerating, we realize Littleton is pretty much under construction,
Yeah.
if you will, in the main thoroughways, and Russell Street being a very important thoroughway for all the buses and all the people that have to travel that regularly to pick up their children from Tiger's Den and from school and their bus, so I know the headaches that's caused, and the residents. We've had some water main breaks to go with it, so,
Yeah. And on top of that, there was a new bus schedule, as was mentioned earlier this year. So, I mean, it was a
Yeah.
lot of logistical hurdles.
yeah, and a new different school start time.
Different school start
and
times, yep.
scheduling, so,
yeah.
no, it's coming together, so, better things ahead as far as a lot of that, the project goes. anyway.
Oh, sorry, and I did have one more thing,
Yeah.
which is I'll be at office hours, 1 to 3 at the library. So if anyone has anything they'd like to discuss, I would encourage them to stop by.
On what day?
Friday?
Friday.
Friday.
All right, everything has kind of been discussed. I just wanted to thank everybody, all the departments, for, getting through the summer and working hard. I know we're coming into our fiscal cycle, so I know things will start to pick up there. We're getting ready for a special town meeting. I know a lot of departments work hard at that, and regular business just continues. So, in a town that we're getting larger, we're very fast-paced, a lot of projects going on, and it's getting harder and harder to get people that truly want to come into an 8 to 4:30 job or 8 to 5 job, because it's, with all the other options available. So thank you for continuing to work for Littleton, those of you that have chosen to dedicate your time to do that. I did want to bring up, the meeting today was very enlightening, and I think it goes a long way when we can get our faces out there at any level on the state, so they just know who we are and what we're trying to do. And I think it's important because that's a step up from someone else doing it. So I think it's continued to see, even if, when I'm not chair, but I'm always making sure if we have those opportunities, and Ryan, thank you, for including us in that. Just continue to be that way. That's how we can get things done, because at the end of the day, it's about people and seeing who they are.
In the squeaky wheel.
In the squeaky wheel. So also, I didn't bring this up, next week, I believe September 14th from 11:30 to 12:30, Representative Arciero is going to be in town with the Secretary of Housing, Augustus, correct? So we're going to be putting together with him this week, we'll be putting together some type of an agenda or tour, if you will, of the IBM property and what that vision is and what that's going to look like down there, and kind of what the common area is going to, just to get that there. So there's a lot more to come on that. I know it's a long weekend, so I know Representative Arciero didn't have, we tabled it till this week, the cookout, that's when he brought it up. So I think a lot more to come on that. So whether it's something we have to post, if it becomes a formal thing for us from 11:30 to 12:30 on the 14th, or if it doesn't become a quorum type thing, then we're okay, but maybe we do want to post just in case it does. We'll get more details. I'll make sure we get it out to you guys.
You done?
Yeah, I think that,
Just wanted to throw out there, Mark, I appreciate you reminding me. I was thinking we had one more meeting to get this out there, but on the 15th of September, Friday the 15th, first home game for the football team at Alumni Stadium.
My goodness.
We're going to have there's going to be a dedication for Millie McGovern of the ticket booth. So it's prior to the game, so about 6 p.m. on the 15th, to show some love to Millie and all that she meant to, and all the time, effort, and energy and love she gave to Littleton. We want to just give a little bit back. So that's 6 p.m. on the 15th.
Okay. I'll do one alibi, and that was just the senior tax committee.
Yes.
To save. I always forget the name of it. But we met.
Committee to research
senior tax. But anyway, we did meet. We're going to change that name if it's the last thing I do. We've been meeting regularly. We have come up with some ideas, and we're working closely with Liz's office and the Council on Aging.
Assessor's office. The
assessor's office, especially, to kind of get out there and promote some of these underutilized programs that Littleton already has. So I know one of those is, we have a couple senior spaghetti dinner coming up, I think, in October. A lunch event, again, where we're going to actually, a few of us will be presenting a PowerPoint presentation during the luncheon or during the dinner. Not a very long presentation, probably 15 minutes, maybe 10 minutes, and really goes over all of those programs and how to reach out discreetly, if necessary, to get more information about these programs. And so a lot of work has gone into this, and I thank Kathy's office and Steve. Once again, we hear that name, Steve Venuti, a lot. We probably should get a bronze statue for him sometime. But he put a lot of work into this as well, and he's going to help us present some of the summarized details or examples, if you will, on what that means. Because we can sit there and read charts to people, but your eyes will glaze over when you can place a real, your house, this is your house, this is what you pay in taxes, this is what you can get, these are the programs available to you and how much you can save. So when you really put it down to that level, I think it'll help a lot of people understand that there's some programs that they might qualify for out there. So
there's 7 different programs that we have in place right now, and we're looking at investigating other possibilities and avenues, but there's 7 programs that are in place right now that are completely underutilized. There's a lot of people that qualify for it, but one of them that is, we're trying to find out why more people aren't using it. There's only 2 people that are taking advantage of this one program, and so hopefully as we educate people, I mean, as that goes up, everybody else's taxes are going to be affected by it, but when it's diluted by, the rest of us, I think it's a worthy cause.
Yeah. So, more to come on that. I think what we'll do, we have a nice presentation that, or a chart that's come out that talks about all these programs in a more formal way. That actually went out with the broadcaster. It's going to go out in the broadcaster.
It's going to September's broadcast.
Yeah, and as well as a briefing on LCTV, a little, the same presentation that we're going to probably show at the luncheons and dinners. And I think we'll put it on our agenda for another board meeting, just so we share it in the packet, so we can visualize it and let you guys all see it.
And maybe have Richard come and do the presentation.
Sure, yeah, one of our members can give a presentation. It's, like I said, 10 minutes.
Tops.
That way, the five of us, when we run into
speak to
somebody in
Right.
town.
Be ambassadors for
Yeah, did you
programs,
ever
yeah.
think of this?
Yep.
All right. Believe it or not, we have no public in the room. This is the first for me
Perhaps Mr. Sturts?
in a long time. So no public input today. I appreciate all the member updates and Ryan, your updates, and some of the discussion of some of the major projects going on in town. We're going to move on to the town meeting update, which is coming up November 1st, 2023. It's faster than we think. So we do have, this does come with a motion. Ryan put together the basically a draft of all the warrant articles. So the only one, did you end up adding the one that?
Yeah,
we
we'll
did?
get to that, right.
Okay.
Actually, there's a couple, I think I had mentioned earlier.
yes.
We're going to add the CPC
Yep.
piece, from an increase from 1% to 2%, as well as a placeholder for the OPM and design
Okay.
costs. So, but if I may, Gary,
Yes,
just to
please.
kind of give everybody an update on, a reminder on some of the scheduling items. So, the warrant closes at noon on Friday, September 15th. So far, there haven't been any public petition articles that we've seen or have heard of anything to date. Presuming nothing happens on that, we would then be, board would be voting to finalize their special town meeting warrant at your meeting on Monday, September 18th, which would be your next meeting. And then you'd also be voting on the order at that as well. So hope then would be, with that information, we would be able to get the report to the printer on Thursday, September 28th, post the actual warrant document on the 29th, and then have the report delivered to the post office for delivery on Friday, October 13th, and then would either go out that Friday or over the weekend. So with that said, what's before you tonight is a request to insert articles and begin that process for for your meeting tonight. The motion would be to insert, sort of, without going into each one, so I have to make Mark read each article, just basically going over what we have, and then if there's articles that we would then remove or what have you, we would just state that in the motion. So if it's okay with the board, then what I would propose to do would be to go through each one, talk a little bit about it, and answer any questions that you have, and determine, from that, get the sense of the board whether or not you want to insert those articles for the November 1st, 2023 special town meeting. That sound okay, Mr. Chairman?
Yes.
Okay, all right. So first item is, you remember, typically when we start an annual town meeting, we have to appoint such positions as a fence viewer, field driver, measures of and weighers of grain, hay, coal, and livestock. So it's one of those things that I think has probably outlived its usefulness, and so so this is something that in an attempt to make things a little quicker for town meeting, it becomes one article that we can just eliminate the positions, and then if we eliminate the positions, we then don't have to appoint them.
What is the position of fence viewer pay?
Right. I think none of these are actually paying positions, so many of these, have responsibilities. A fence viewer does actually have some value in terms of, determining whether the fences have been placed. No, I appreciate that, but that actually, of all of these, is something that, determining, is the fence in the right place, but really that's what our building commission typically does, and.
Okay, so these are all ones that unless somebody has a real hang-up.
Yeah.
There's probably more than this, but this is a good start.
Joe Knox is going to be heartbroken.
Yeah, this is not the anti-Joe Knox article, but it's again, just something that's clearly we need to clean up.
Okay.
And that sort of speaks to the next article, which is something the town clerk has requested. I still waiting to get a few more details on this in terms of basically another sort of housekeeping article where we've got a lot of boards that haven't met in years,
Sure.
committees, there's some funds that we'd like to close out. So, town clerk has asked for this, but I think I need a little bit more information with it. I just want to have this in as a placeholder again.
Yeah, if we have boards that haven't met in years, there's nothing wrong with eliminating them and then reinstituting them if they
Right.
start to.
If we
I
see
mean,
value,
why?
yeah.
Right.
Right, and I think that's, I think there've been, committees that served a purpose for a time,
Certainly,
and then just haven't, whatever they were working on has been accomplished or gone the other way, so that's really what that article's about.
Okay.
Next article, this probably be something, for the board to discuss. The police chief was here at our last meeting and had requested a new position for a new school resource officer. So the question would be to the board whether or not you would want to seek to amend the fiscal year 2024 operating budget to add that school resource officer.
I think, at that last meeting, I made it clear that I'm not in favor of this as a warrant article. I'm opposed to, making the special town meeting budget 2.0. I think someone said that to me the other day, and there are several articles in here that are basically, they're asking for budget money, and they're not being compared against all the other things that we're spending when we do the full budget process in the spring. So I would prefer not to make a special case for any of these, which are new asks from departments. And it has nothing to do with SROs or the police department or the schools. But I do want to make sure that we're making smart decisions about how we're spending our money and that we're weighing this expenditure against anything else that is going to be on the chopping block come next spring. If we approve it now, it's going to be in the budget and we won't ever be able to take it out. And it's basically a fait accompli. So that's my opinion.
Okay, anyone else on number 3? I spoke a little bit more on it. I'm not sure which ones you're specifically referring to, but we'll get into it.
Yeah,
You can bring it up.
None of them are as significant as that one, I
Yeah.
don't think. But,
Okay.
So I'll just repeat like what Matthew referenced last meeting. This is something that we advised Matthew last year to be a team player, which he's always been, Chief Bernard, to take it off last year's budget in the regular cycle when we were fighting for things, and he was willing to push it off to the fall town meeting, which is the advice that we gave him. So, in a way, we're punishing him. I totally agree that we shouldn't have off-cycle, but we pretty much knew about this last February. And it was something that had come up then, and we did ask him to kind of stand down and withdraw it last year. So, to ask him to do it again, when we were the ones that told him to bring it back to us in the special. So I feel as though I'm conflicted because I think from just from a principle standpoint, we shouldn't be doing any off-cycle hires, but we were the body that advised the chief to pull it back last spring and bring it forward again this fall. So,
Okay, fair enough, but, and maybe that's our bad, but if we couldn't afford it in the spring, why can we afford it now?
And why does this get priority over any of the other positions that we couldn't afford in the spring? We just talked 20 minutes ago about needing someone to write grants, right? And that would actually save us money. This one's going to cost us money. And I've been advocating for a grant writer since I got on the board, and we still don't have one.
It's been something
And
that's
still
been
don't
going for
have a
years.
plan for having one, so.
Well, I think the need, that discussion happened during last budget cycle.
So did this one.
Right, that's what I mean. The need for this SRO happened during the last budget cycle. The case was presented. I don't remember the reasoning why. I don't know. I'm assuming we had other positions. At that time, we said we need to fill.
Where can we trim? That's
Yeah,
basically
well,
what we said.
we were cutting things from
It might have been,
every
it might have been the health department, we were really going through that mess. I don't remember.
Well, there were some things that we said flat out, we're not
But
going to fund it, and this one we said, bring it back to us in the fall. So it went through that process, and some things we just said no. This one, we didn't give a hard no on. So,
In what way was this discussion held? Was it held publicly? Did folks have a chance to review that discussion and see the thought process and understand that the board was making that decision that
it was
not-
during a
not
budget
now, but
conversation. I
later?
don't recall whether it was at the select board meeting, a FinCom meeting, or when Chief presented his, but I don't recall exactly which meeting was that. I can certainly research and try to dig that out.
But it was at an open meeting. It was definitely
Yeah, oh, yeah,
part of the public
yes.
discussion.
And
I mean,
it's-
it was, but there were a lot of conversations that we had with Anthony and with the rest of the department heads about, we can't do this, can we do that, and, I mean, yeah.
So you're not arguing the validity of an SRO, you're arguing the fact that it's off-cycle, and why would this take precedence
Well,
over?
and also to some extent, like, let's allow Matt Pinard to allocate his resources as he sees fit. I mean, if he has a,
We told him not to.
he has a budget, and if he needs another SRO, then he should use his existing budget to fund an SRO. I'm not sure why we are going out of our way to specify that we need an SRO. I thought that was really up to the chief to
Yeah,
determine.
I don't think this particular position was more, obviously an SRO, we give it that name for 180 days of the year, when the other 180, they're patrol.
It's an additional patrol.
So, right, they're not,
Patrol
they're
person.
actually doing the same duties and implementing the same details as the rest of the.
Even during those
police
180
force.
days, they cover shifts and
They do, so
details and.
Yes, this is actually another resource that the chief was asking, which we could just put that away and say that he was asking for another officer.
So just to play advocate here, I mean, we just heard Chief Clancy say that he needs 3 new people, and we're hearing the Chief Pinard say he needs 1, and Pinard's 1 isn't going against those 3 if we approve it now. Right, they're not being weighted the same.
But we did hire a
We-
firefighter.
We did hire a firefighter, yes.
During the regular budget cycle.
Yes, so we did do one off-cycle last year
The
to
year
stop
before,
the
yep.
bleeding.
Yep.
Right.
Right, this one, I do want to continue discussion on if there's needed, but I do want to, we circle back to this because this might be one that we're going to have to
So-
vote on to pull or as a board.
So I'm fine
require a
leaving
vote.
it in for now and having more discussion after FinCom weighs.
No,
in.
I'm not even saying
Right.
FinCom, I mean, we can vote tonight which ones to pull.
Yes.
We can't, well, we don't have another opportunity to do that, right?
Well, you are going to be
18th
meeting, you are going to be
One
meeting
more
again
time.
in the next
But this is a
meeting
good
and then
discussion.
finalizing it. So if you were to
We
take,
could-
if you were to take a hold on it now, it could
So we
be
can
the next
approve
step.
as many as we want, say, we can go down 1, 5, 6, 7,
Yeah.
8. And then some of these that we would like, I mean, everyone's got their opinions on
Yeah.
this one. And it's a 3-2 vote puts it on the warrant.
Is FinCom meeting
They are.
before our next meeting? I'd be really interested in their
I agree.
stance on it.
I agree.
you know?
Yeah, and
Fair.
I think they're meeting, Matthew, again, maybe next Tuesday, I
Okay.
think, so.
So,
And I think from a financial policy standpoint,
I think,
I'm not going to speak for FinCom, but
Yeah.
I think if I were on FinCom, I'd probably lean, like I said, I'm conflicted on it, but I do feel as though we led him down that path
okay.
to be in this position. But in full disclosure, if I were on FinCom, I'd probably lean more on the policy and say, yeah, but we said this.
We don't hire off-cycle.
Right. So, I mean, I see the argument for it, but I also am sympathetic to Matt's been a team player in every budget cycle, and he's given a lot of stuff up, so I just.
And the situation sort of speaks to something that came up, I think, during our retreat, which was that it would be really helpful to create a list of our top 10 priorities, had we had the funds, these are the top 10 things we would have liked to have funded. These are the, 1 through 10 that we would have brought back if we could have, and that would make these decisions a lot easier for me. My question when I saw this request was, okay, was this foreseeable last year? Sure. Sounds like it was, and have circumstances changed significantly such that, and it doesn't sound like it has. So it's hard. It's hard to, but on the other hand, promises made by this group should be kept by this group regardless of who sits on the board, I think, which is.
That's a good point. I'm okay with leaving it on. I mean, we can leave it on here and revisit it at our next meeting.
Have additional discussion.
I just would like to hear from, I would like FinCom
Sure.
to discuss it at their meeting.
I support that.
Okay. So let's go to the
And I think
next
they'll
one, I
have
guess, and come back to this next time.
Electronic voting for town meeting funding requests.
Sure.
something
So
we all
just to
committed to.
remind everybody what the plan is here, that I have the town clerk and the town moderator working, tasked them both with coming forward with a plan for a recommended vendor for basically having electronic voting at the annual town meeting. But there will be a cost associated with this, and what this proposal will be to give an overview of what they found and request funding for that. So I did see there were some emails going back and forth today, but where I was out of the office, I hadn't seen it. But this, again, as we discussed, and part of that plan to move forward, that's what this would be.
Okay, so funding request at the November special, and that for the May, by then we'll have a purchase. and then we'll-
Or rental, whatever, whatever
purchase or
form that
rental.
it would take. So, but I know the town clerk and town moderator making progress on that. And, if I was looking at those emails, I'd be able to give you that number today, but that's what that's
Right.
for.
So my only, we keep talking about FinCom is meeting again, and I can reach out to the chair, Steve, just to make sure that the discussion of these articles are on their next agenda, because
He had asked me to attend, so I
is
think it's
critical to
looking
us.
the next Tuesday, so.
not that it's all inclusive, I mean, if they vote something that they can give their reasons, it might be more, I understand there are other things that we weigh besides strictly just finances, so we might have to weigh something, but.
And they're meeting
That helps.
tonight
It
as
does
well,
help a
so I
lot.
think they may be sort of kicking off that process
Yeah, okay.
based on this list. But, again, I think they're meeting again next week
Okay.
as well about that. So,
Parks
number 5, if you remember
Ryan,
Parks. Yep.
we're not making any recommendations on
Well,
this.
it's just to say, like,
No, just,
my-
no, I'm talking about,
Yeah,
we're gonna leave it more to FinCom, whether they decide this should be a raise and appropriate, or
That's right,
how
that's
each one of
right.
these items is going to be.
I think I've written a few of these with suggestions, and I would be working with FinCom in terms of, where the funding would come from. So I think that the questions to you for these is just to say, the articles themselves, and, we'll refine it some more as it goes along. So it's more to say there's certain things, if there are things in here that you just say, well, this was inserted, Ryan, but we don't want this in. Really more exclusion than anything else. To provide guidance as to the final document. So item 5, if you remember, Parks, Recreation, and Community Education was at one point an enterprise account, and the town meeting is now it's a revolving fund. So we vote limits on how much any fund can spend in any given year. And the annual town meeting, that limit was set at 1.1 million, and the request is to increase it to 1.3 million. I think that was something that I think I had asked Alicia to provide some information as to why the change, but this is their request and the commission's request, so supporting it forward.
Typically, when we see something like this, we see, here's why.
And,
So we're going to have to have another, all right, so Park and Rec will have to come back with this, okay.
It's my understanding this is a request of the commission.
So this is, we're amending this mid-year. Is this unusual as well?
It's not really, if you remember, there's a table that we have in the annual town meeting about, and what, spending caps are in each, each category of revolving funds. So in this case, I hadn't heard, I don't know what the answer to that is, but we can follow up on it. It's just that, so right now it's more of a placeholder.
Okay.
So, number 6 is to transfer about $82,000 to the Sewer Enterprise Fund to fund the town's sewer betterment assessment. As we had shown you the letters that had gone out for betterments. We have our own responsibilities here for that. So, funding sources to be determined, but that is an obligation that we have. We didn't know what that number would be in May, so now we do, and so we're asking for an article to be able to cover that. So,
And we've got a lot of options for funding sources for that as well.
as we do for many of these in here. So,
ARPA being one.
but again, but to your point though, Chuck, I think it's, I'm not describing as to where those funding sources would be. I think it would be more working with the FinCom and what's appropriate. And that.
So I thought when we gave them the $2 million in ARPA, that was supposed to cover our betterment?
No.
That's what we agreed to. When we gave them the $2 million in ARPA,
No,
they
that
said
was
this
towards
was
the full
in
project.
to cover.
That was to contribute to the full project.
No, if you go back and watch the meetings,
I sat in the meetings.
we said this was going to be our betterment, but they wouldn't put it in writing because they needed it because then they couldn't get the SRF funding. But they said that we had paid our betterment. And then some.
Matthew, from the working group, my understanding is that the $2 million went towards bringing down the total project cost.
So-
Is that your understanding as well?
I don't think that it was ever, I do think it's a gray area. I think Mark is right. I think that the discussion in general terms in the select board meeting was that it would go against our betterment, but that the language in the letter, whatever we signed, was that it would be applied towards the project.
Which
So-
brings everybody's betterment down at the end of the day.
Yeah, that's true, but not.
But I think it was a proposal that Anthony made that we could use the ARPA to fund our betterment, but we decided that
No.
it would be better to fund the $2 million
I don't remember
towards
that
the project.
as a working group decision. I would have to go back and watch the.
I mean, we can discuss it, but the bottom line is, we got a bill.
We've got
From
in
the
excess
so
of
I don't know.
$800,000 total.
I mean,
betterment.
this is a discussion we can have with Light and Water, but I mean, this is, we got this betterment, just like everybody else did.
Right.
Which means, and this is 10% of the betterment, correct?
Of the estimated cost.
Of the estimated cost,
Yes,
yes.
so this is again more to just establish the responsibilities for the 80 users. And we're the town's one of those users.
So the ARPA money's already been spent on the overall
Budget
cost.
cost to bring down the
Budget
project.
cost, right? So the 2 million for our betterment does not exist right now. That's
$2
the
million that
problem.
was our betterment
But it-
was not our betterment.
Okay. I mean,
Do you have the meetings? Do you have somewhere the meetings where we discussed it, or you can like?
I'll find them.
Because I want to go back and watch. I have a vague memory of what happened, but I don't have any specifics at this point.
I'll find them.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah, share them with all of us.
If I may, Mr. Chair, to move on. Next is a transfer of $4.4 million from the overlay reserve account to the capital stabilization fund. So we've been, this is a vote recently taken by the Board of Assessors in terms of making funding available. We put money in the overlay reserve to cover disputes regarding valuations and such, and we've been continuing to contribute to that, and we are still leaving a balance in the account, in the reserve, but this allows us the capacity to take a nice chunk of funding here at the special and put it into the capital stabilization.
yeah, that's huge. And we see this every now and then. This is some of that. So this is really gonna help us in some other articles that we see.
Do you know how much is going to be left after this transfer?
I believe it's certainly, it's like over 1 million.
Yeah, they were comfortable
Yeah,
with the
and-
number. I remember
and-
asking.
That's fantastic.
And you'll see, when we put together the next budget, we'll be putting more money in,
Sure,
that'll be
sure.
part of that as
Yep.
well. But this is a way that we can say that, there's one reserve and taking that reserve and not reallocating those funds to a different reserve for other municipal needs, so.
That's after we ask the
Yeah,
Kathy,
they've
what-
already taken the
They've
vote,
voted.
and this is what they've made
Okay,
available.
this is
to
what
us.
is
So this
real
is
money.
formalizing the
Good.
transfer, basically, right, so they've already voted as such.
That's a good chunk of, that's a big chunk of capital stabilization.
All right.
That's wonderful.
Article 8 is a transfer of $6,000 from the Board of Trustees to the Elder and Human Services Sampson Fund. This was a request from Steve Venuti and the Board of Trustees to make that transfer, so
Do you mean the Commissioners of Trust? Is that
whatever the title is.
I don't know I don't know who the
that's
Board
it.
of Trustees is.
I think that's whatever the title is.
Trust
I will look
The trust-
into that, so.
That was
yeah.
my question.
Yeah, the
Yeah.
trust
I think it's
commission.
the Trust Commissioners or Commissioners of Trust.
Okay. We'll get the right title on that, but that's essentially the group, what it is. Let's see here. So, Senior Center Building, Fund Stabilization transfer to the Center on Shattuck Street project. I believe there was some additional interest that was available within the stabilization fund. So this was basically, then it's been sitting in the account and accumulating, so there's additional funds that are available that we would then make available for the project. So we'll get the exact numbers on that.
Have we moved all of the senior center stabilization out into the Shattuck Street
I think
fund?
there's, I think it's 5 million, and then this would be the difference of whatever the remaining, to close out the account, is my understanding.
Okay, so this is the last bit after
Right.
5 million, okay.
Mhm. In addition to that, yep. Number 10 is transfer funding from the Capital Stabilization Fund for the owner's project manager and architectural support for the renovation of 36 King Street. We've talked a little bit with the board about what that plan could be. Thinking now is to be able to try to get the owner's project manager and architectural plans available to get a bid out for our annual town meeting. We would be also working with the PMBC to develop and define any aspects of the scope for what that might look like. We're working with with Vertex, who we've been working with on a lot of projects, and determining whether or not we can use Vertex on this project again.
Didn't we already spend money with Vertex and
Yeah,
with
We did.
LFB?
LLB.
So it's just this is a legal question.
Right.
Probably.
So this is a legal question of whether or not we can continue on with them, and so we
Save us a
received
lot
some
of
feedback.
I'm not even saying continue on with it. They already created a report for us, and
Well,
then we need
I-
to put stuff to
You
bid
know,
to
and I
get
think
work done.
that's the point, Chuck, that it does provide for a certain element of continuity with it, so we're just trying to figure out how we.
Okay, so
make sure we
I don't
can
think
do
you're
that.
understanding my question. I'm of the opinion that this doesn't have to be, we don't have to put this article on the warrant, because we've already paid, we'd already paid an OPM, Vertex, and we've paid the architect, LLB, and they've created a report, which is how we
Right.
found out that going to town meeting last year, it was much more money than we thought it was going to be to renovate. Why don't we just use that in order to
So what this would be,
create
Chuck?
that scope?
Yeah, so what this would be is we would probably hand the project over to the PMBC, because there were some questions about project scope and what have you, so that they would be the responsible party. And then from that, they would be working with whatever team that we have to work with, is then to provide construction bids, because there's a process we have to go through to get the bids together, and work, to work from the efforts that we've already put in, such that the hope would be that with that money, we then have a bid in hand, we've got someone managing that process, and then we go out to bid, and then we come to the annual town, try to time with the annual town meeting in May, and say, okay, the bid in hand says that, the project's going to cost X, and with that, we seek town meeting's approval from that. So at that point, it would have been, the scope of the work had been discussed and vetted by the PMBC. We have an actual bid in hand, because I think that in attending some of the FinCom meetings, some of the concerns that they've expressed in the past as well, like what we were asking at the, prior to the annual was just an estimate. We don't know what that's going to be, and they said in past, they've had bids in hand, and that's something that they, the model that they like working with.
Okay.
And so we're just trying to, meet,
feel like we're
meet
double
the
paying.
goals of what FinCom, how they like to do things in the past, sort of returning back to that model. So, and again, we're still working on the details and in terms of how we can do that legally, but the objective is just trying, to then take what's been provided, Chuck, and to get that to a point where you can do public bidding is, it's a relatively heavy lift, because you're going to be providing specs on all this, on the actual work you're doing.
It's amazing how long you buy a building and how long it takes to actually get it.
Well, looking at the
crazy.
overlay, that's gonna be transferred into capital stabilization. That could literally be just invested into the renovations of Indian Hill. And I think that we can put something out to bid for someone that will do soup to nuts. Will give us the proposal as well as the project management and hire the contractors and all that kind of stuff.
Fortunately, Mass General Law limits us in some ways with it, but,
I don't know.
in
I
terms,
feel like there's a way we could do it.
yeah, but,
And we can discuss it offline, but I
okay,
just feel like it's a double dip from the OPM
okay.
that we've already paid on this project.
All right.
Definitely more to come from that.
Yeah.
Okay. So let's see, Article 11, or item number 11, is to amend the language of prior town meeting funding articles to support the Center on Shattuck Street project to allow for the reallocation of funding for design and construction. My understanding is that there's sufficient funding between the design, when you put the design and the construction pieces together, and I think we underspent on the design, and there are going to be some more needs in the construction. So
Yes,
it's
the
just
library went
basically-
through the same process.
Yeah, just a reallocation of it,
Shuffle.
and so, of those funds, so that was something we wanted to put in. Number 12 is the purchase of the Webster property. I've looked at the chair. Do you have any update on where
No,
that's?
I'm going to assume is going to be a conservation article presented. I mean, they're the ones that are going to present this article and packet.
I don't know.
I mean,
I think there's definitely some dispute about the valuation.
no, we know that, but I think, I talked to the chair. He was obviously going to bring it to the board, and they were going to decide and vote on to go forward with
Okay.
this article and support it, because I made it very clear that obviously if conservation wasn't going to support the article wasn't going to be put on the
Right.
on the warrant. So because then it would have to become a citizens
Yeah.
so
Petition, yeah.
petition. So right now, it's there because I believe their board is going to support the article with the appraisal. And we talked about the value of land, what it means to have open space in Littleton, and how appraisals work and what they're being compared against, to what that land value truly is to a person that wants to keep land owned by our town in a conservation capacity. And so the values, sometimes the money doesn't exactly equal what the
So
true value.
are they using the appraised value as what they're gonna go
Well,
forward with?
you can't hide it. The
Article?
appraised value is what it is. So this
But is that what they're using? Is
No,
that
it
what's
isn't.
gonna be on the warrant?
That's to be discussed with the owner of the property and what the actual ask is going to be. And then the town's going to have to vote on what they want the
Because
ask.
the appraised value came in, what, 630?
The appraised value came in at 632, I
The
believe.
assessed value is 477 through our assessor.
Right, and the owner wants it more in line with the last three properties that Littleton purchased, the Williams property, the Brown property, and another property, I forget the other property last, but, so that's kind of
Wait and see.
where we're at, but that article, obviously is there because I believe that conservation is going to at least, speak
It's
to the
placeholder.
article and support it.
It's placeholder.
Yeah, right now, right, and, and the approach, in the approach to it,
Okay,
it's just
so-
that.
Well, and I say it, I said it, I know when I ran for the select board, that the only way to stop growth, when we're talking about residential growth, just continued residential growth, developments, is A, zone it to make it much more difficult, and B, purchase up land, have the town purchase land. And both are at a significant cost to the town, so this is one of those things that Littleton's going to have to decide if that property is worthy of purchase, and let the presentation lead to that, and the appraisal, not hiding anything, the appraisal's out there, what it is. And I understand that
That's
a
a
developer,
personal, we don't have to
right,
talk about it.
a developer's going to discuss what they can do on that property. So that'll be weighed also against, what would you like to see there if we don't purchase it, so.
So Gary, is this also a CPC article then? Or,
I don't believe so. I didn't,
well, I mean, we can't talk about purchasing a property without a funding source.
yeah.
So I don't know what the funding source is if it's not CPC.
But again, if this is gonna be from the Conservation Commission, it's a placeholder. They need to make all the arguments you just made.
Yes.
And the arguments that Mark's saying about CPC, they have to present that to us. We can't make an argument
No,
for the
you're
property owner.
absolutely
And that's what you're doing. I mean, we can't say,
At this
Yeah,
point, we
I
don't
can
even
argue
know
We
both
have to look at the
sides of this.
value.
I
I
understand that.
agree.
An appraisal's an appraisal, it is what it is.
Yeah, at this point, we don't even know what an amount
right.
could be either.
Right.
So that's still open. This truly is, there's different levels of placeholders. This is.
So we probably are going to have conservation in here, either just the chair if you'd like to speak to it, or at an upcoming meeting before, obviously we go to ink. So we need solid numbers.
13's rescinding.
Yep, Article 13 is rescinding of a prior borrowing authorization to purchase an ambulance and related costs, so that's more of a housekeeping matter. The next item is proposed ambulance purchase, based upon, we looked at the balance in the ambulance fund and how much we thought we could apply at this time. So the timing has been a little bit off, where I think the way that the current condition of the backup ambulance is it's in tough shape. So I think we're talking about moving forward with some sort of trade-in for that. But so typically when we think about the ambulance fund and our funding from it, we typically like to have it so that it funds the entire cost of an ambulance, but in this case, we think we're going to be a little bit short, and so we're proposing to pay for the balance of it out of the capital stabilization fund. But based on the conversations that I've had with the chief, this is not something we can wait much longer. The current, again, the backup ambulance has got a number of issues where I think it's time to make that.
So this is another one of
This
these.
this is another one of the ones that I'm questioning why we're doing it mid-cycle.
I thought we did it. I thought we did this in May. Didn't we vote an ambulance in May, and they just said it was going to take 2 years to get? That's
No.
what I seem to recall.
I think we talked about that in terms of the timing, in terms of when we would then go out, Mark. So we never actually committed any funding, but subsequent to that, and it's unfortunate the chief isn't here to speak to it, I think that the condition of the second ambulance has just continued to deteriorate.
Or the amount of time it takes to get a new ambulance.
And right, and then I think he's also been able to find someone on the state bid list who is able to potentially provide a loaner and kind of be able to, with this funding, potentially provide something for us in the spring. So it's true. It's hard to think like budget 2.0 this cycle, but there are things that are dynamic enough that I
Let's
think,
get
you know,
FinCom's
warrant
opinion on
action.
this as well, and we'll
So,
take it from there. I mean, there's definitely two sides to that argument.
yeah.
Just because we got 4.4 million into the cap stabilization
No,
fund doesn't mean we need to spend it.
No,
I've heard that before.
fair enough.
Well, I
So-
mean, it's, yeah,
Well-
raise and appropriate to use capital stabilization, it's just a matter
Sure.
of what's the best use of that money, what's the opportunity cost, and that's all stuff that we have to weigh with FinCom.
Yeah.
I guess I just,
We could borrow.
if this is an emergent thing where, that backup ambulance has just completely fallen apart in the last, 2 months or something, I haven't heard about it, or, it comes as a surprise to me that we need to act on this immediately. That's all.
Yeah, I mean,
I would have expected some more info.
Well, I get, you know,
He's definitely mentioned it.
He did
Yeah.
in the annuals.
In the annual,
budget conversation.
shown pictures and discuss the aging of vehicle and how we're out of cycle on what a typical ambulance would last for. So the knowledge is there by us. It's always been a question of, and hence the reason why we even started this ambulance stabilization, because we knew
Yeah.
we needed to do something to get this done, so.
And the hope
There's an
would,
argument for
and the
that.
hope would be by not spending the entire amount out of the ambulance fund, that we give a little bit of a break to the fund, such that the next ambulance that we come forward with, because we don't want to have them, back to back, because it's an expensive purchase, that we'll be able to fund hopefully the next ambulance out of, entirely out of the ambulance
Yeah,
fund.
that was the intent, I think, when we initially created that stabilization.
This is, Matthew, to your earlier point, this is another request that's been put in. This is a request for $40,000, and again, the funding source we're going to talk about, but with the FinCom, but for the purchase of a mower attachment to the trackless machine. So, and this is an example, I think, of something that wasn't even necessarily in the capital plan, but that we have a trackless machine that we use almost, I think, exclusively to plow sidewalks. But as you know, Steve Yonley's a relatively new to the job, and one of the things that came to his attention that that there are attachments for the trackless machine that you can attach a mower arm to that can kind of get down hills, and that he's found in his experience that's pretty effective. In terms of why I'm agreeing with him to put it on the special versus the annual, you start having to mow grass in the spring. So if we approve the funding now, then it's available. It can be added to the trackless and would be, be able to use it in April.
Communities use them they get attachments to water, like the islands they can't get water to, and there's brush,
Right.
I
snowblower
I
attachments.
think there's something to be said too for the amount, like I'm less sketched out by $40,000 in the middle of the cycle than I am by
But the
brand
kind-
new full-time position.
Same-
That's funny,
Regardless-
because I'm more stressed out by this one than I am the ambulance.
Why?
Because we knew about the ambulance, this just came out of nowhere.
But
With good reason.
the reasoning in this case is where Steve was relatively new, he's starting to get to know the equipment, and understanding, trying to maximize the use of the equipment. Trust me, I had my own questions about this, but that, because regardless of the amount, we have to respect how that capital process is, in fact, the process that we have to abide by. At the same time, there are components that come up that, I think warrant additional consideration. And in this case, if we're able to put the funding aside, then we've got an underutilized piece of equipment that now really has more function that we can put to work in the spring.
And it's going to
It's still a
allow
tough
the other
argument.
mowers that are being used to mow the areas that this machine could mow to not be as taxed.
That's true.
I'm not saying we shouldn't do this, I
No,
just don't know why we
yeah.
should do it
No,
on a
I think the
cycle.
discussion should still be had, keep re-emphasizing with
Go
the
back to
department
financial
heads.
policies, sure.
This is going to become an annual thing. If you have an emergency, for instance, if you had come to me today and said, that broke, we already had one of these and it broke and $40,000 to replace it, well, we have a fund we have the reserve fund, the finance committee's reserve fund to replace that.
Right.
That makes more sense, but you're right, new department head, and we're still trying to get a message out that we really want to hold these type of capital items to the annuals, which is going to put a lot more, will force us to put a lot more
Not just capital
thought.
items.
No,
Like,
true, in
Right.
operational hiring.
Any budget
If
impact.
it's not on the budget, if it's not if it was foreseeable and it's not on our top 10 list, hopefully that we'll start developing, then, the answer is going to be no, should be the message. I did have a question. Is that mower going to be used for the orchards potentially?
I think it's more of, I mean, I think that it maybe could, but it's really more for downslopes and, because I think it's an attached arm that then would come out. So if you're, sort of the awkward spots, a lot of stuff on the side of roads, things of that nature, it could probably be used in the orchard.
For some reason, I thought that the sidewalk plow was in really bad shape. It was.
We got a new one with Jim Clyde here.
Oh, okay,
Yeah.
okay.
Right. And trust me,
It's a great
I
piece of
had,
equipment. It's very universal.
I had my questions about this as well, but then again, weighing it out and saying, okay, because the funding that you approve of at the Maytown meeting isn't available until July 1st. So by the time you actually purchase it, the season is going to
Well,
be
you're right.
really over, whereas the funding for the November special is, pretty much available right away.
Argument made.
So that's I just want to explain the logic about that one, so.
Just to the top 10 list, I think that's exactly what we should be doing. We should be talking about that. But there are going to be things that come up. And our priorities will shift based upon
Right,
business.
right, but if
But
you don't
again,
have the top 10 list, how do you know that this
It has to be unforeseeable
jumps
in
and
my
happens?
mind.
Right, yep.
Good idea.
Item 16, I know the board had talked about amending the town administrator selection committee language. So just to remind the board, currently in the code, in the absence of a town administrator, the code stipulates that there'd be a committee that meets and then ultimately makes a recommendation to the board, two candidates for the board to consider. I think the question that I had for you is how you would want to, Chuck and Gary, I think you had mentioned that you wanted to amend it in some way, shape, or form. I guess the question becomes specifically, what you'd want to do to amend it. You could still have this in there, but also give the select board an option to do something else.
I do, and I think Mark is the one that brought up, he thinks this still needs to be in this, but we can add to it.
Right.
And other options, and where we can have the task C still part of the process, but not in the same way necessarily. It gives the select board more flexibility, because like we all talked about before, this bylaw was created before we had an assistant town administrator position, so there was no way of knowing it. So now we've basically, if we have an assistant town administrator that, whatever, all five of us agree can do the job, or 4/5, whatever we could decide to put in here, we can go that route and immediately put that person in, and then we can immediately go out and get an assistant town administrator, literally in a tenth of the time it's taking us to go through the process that we're in now. That's all. It just gives us more flexibility, and I think that makes sense to me. It's just a discussion on what that's going to look like, and whether obviously we might not need it in November, maybe we talk about it for the annual, to put it in there. I mean, it's not going to change anything that's going on right now with this, obviously, this hiring.
So maybe you and I should try to craft some language
Yes.
that would address that, and we all talk about it.
I'll look at what other towns are doing.
Same.
I mean, Wilmington's going through this right now, and they actually, the town administrative selection committee couldn't even agree on making the assistant the interim, right? They had a
It's
different.
not foregone,
They had a
but-
process for that too, right? So, personally, I think the process does need to be updated, but I don't know that I disagree with what the process is.
I just don't agree with something that can take a year. It completely hinders the efficiency of this board to get things done, and creates unnecessary stress on staff top to bottom. Now, it still might end up being that way, and we're saying we're doing all we can, but this is the hand we're dealt, but I'm just picturing the future, where I'm learning from what's happening right now, and I think that is outdated.
We felt like it was outdated the
before-
last time around, frankly.
It's before we had an assistant town administrator position. I just don't, to give us not the ability to vote, at least agree on going with an assistant town administrator. And Ryan, I'm not speaking directly to you.
No.
This is something that should have happened anyway.
We talked about it.
Yep, and we
Previously.
can add more than just, we can vote to accept the assistant town administrator to be the TA. We can add a third element to this if we want. What's another idea? That we go out another way even to do this.
Yeah, looking at other towns is exactly how you.
To do an internal.
Why recreate the wheel, right?
You know, an internal type of announcement. There's different options, but I definitely would like to craft and run it by the board just to see what we can. I mean, if you guys are comfortable with that. The question is, do we want it on the I don't know if we can get this done for the November.
It depends how you want to form it. If you're keeping the TASC in place and you're saying, or.
Yes, the
you know,
word
so
or.
then you basically have it and then or.
Right, and then
The board may choose
the select board would
alternative
decide,
process
all right,
as they
which
see it.
avenue, we have a town administrator that just vacated, which
path
one,
we
two,
go
or
down?
three, which path, let's vote, which path do you guys want to go down for this hire? I mean, I think that's
There's a number
fair.
of options we can throw out there.
So
So
you're thinking of more like a menu maybe of choices?
it can just be
As
three,
opposed to the one choice.
something that everybody's comfortable with, you know, and I do think, I see value on this one for, you
And it
know,
could be a hybrid too, because you could incorporate a couple. I mean,
certainly, but I think this one is the most arduous and has the ability to take the longest
I
time
agree.
if we're not, because we're not all meeting every, I mean, you're asking a lot to form a committee, first of all, and put all this together. And by the time you're looking at it, here we are. You know, clock's ticking, it's March. Boy, we're going to be almost at a year before, and we're going to be down a full-time executive officer position because of inefficiency in our bylaw.
this is a bylaw change we've been talking about since Keith left, frankly. And we've talked about making the change, just like we've talked about making the change to the gift acceptance. You know, and that's something that, you know,
Yeah.
And this is a little different because you'd need town meeting approval to change town code. In the case of that, it's just, you know. the
is that just
changes-
policy based on, no, it involves Mass General law though, right?
Right, you still have to, you know,
Adhere to
but
national
if
law.
if you were to authorize a higher level, you know, within it, I think that gets into your policies and procedures, so you could.
So we wouldn't have to go to town meeting with that.
I don't know, I don't think you would, I don't know if you would.
So let's leave it in here. If
So-
we can, I'll try to put together
So volunteering to come up
the
with.
or
with
language, and
language
then
we
let's
can
see
then
if
present at our
if the
next
rest of the
meeting.
committee wants to add to it or take away or add.
I'll
come up
work with you on it, Gary.
All right, come up with another idea.
Okay, all right. Item 17, another item in the town code. Currently, the town code stipulates the director of finance and budget be either town accountant or treasurer collector. So one of the things we've been
Or
talking.
the assessor?
Don't think
No,
the assessor was,
the collector,
was
collector.
part of the mix. So, you know, one of the things we've been talking about is adding to the assistant town administrator's responsibility that they also take on the role of director of finance, but currently they couldn't do that based upon a limitation in the town code. So it would probably be just adding another position as
The
within-
potential.
What's that?
The potential, like if we didn't feel as though the treasurer collector or the town accountant were.
The ATA could fill
Yeah,
that.
Yeah, I
we
think
could-
it would
we
be, you know, similar to the last article, it isn't
We've got options.
excluding those, it would be, you know, or, you know,
Yeah,
and
if you-
adding on
yeah.
another title.
Might have a very strong ATA that's in the wheelhouse. He's like, well, let's while we're
Right.
bridging this gap even
Right.
potentially, let's
I
have them.
so I think the recommendation that I'd have is not to throw the existing components out, but just to add another option.
Absolutely.
You know, keep the foundation, but, you know, provide for,
And this is, I think, something that the finance committee approves. You know, in talking with them, this is something that they thought was a necessary
Right.
article to have.
And, you know, I think it also speaks to just the difficulty of, that we've had in all of, you know, in peers that I've spoken to in terms of trying to find, you know, people who are qualified to have that title.
Right. We find great accountants, we find great things, it's hard to
Treasurers.
get.
Even that's hard to do, too. I mean,
Yeah.
the personnel part is challenging, so, okay. Item 8 is going to be, Steve Yonley is working with our town council for right-of-way takings on Foster Street. These are some of the sidewalks, we were talking about that earlier today, Gary. So this is some of that, they're going to have to, there's probably going to be some funding we're going to need for that as well. So, that's the basic piece is just to be able to make those improvements.
Is this from Tehadawon to Harwood?
I believe so.
Yeah, because that's
right
the
in
narrow
that T-way.
section.
No, this one goes all the way down by Grimes Lane the whole way, because that's another issue there.
There's right-of-ways that we need there as well.
Yeah, there
past
is.
Harwood, okay.
And I've got some emails on complaints about there not being a stop sign at the end of Grimes Lane. How can you have two right-of-ways that just collide without, all that's there is a gate, but there's no train coming and there's no stop sign. It's just a bizarre thing. So without the right-of-way, because right now the MBTA has that, so we have to, this is going to help resolve that problem in itself. But a lot of others, obviously, the sidewalking.
Right. So, but it's certainly, and I think a lot of this is happening, Matthew, right by the commuter rail station too.
Okay.
So the idea is that you're improving access to that, and I think this is our part of the responsibility in terms of the state work taking place.
All the way to
Yeah.
Balsam.
Right.
This is one of those ones that Steve's putting something forward, and we just allow it to go on the warrant.
Yep.
Right. Next piece, so these next two items in red were additions to the list that went out, because when we put it out, some corrections and additions I was reminded of. The first piece, as we talked a little earlier, about supplemental funding potentially for the feasibility study in the design phases of the Shaker Lane Elementary School project. This is the MSBA project. There may be more funding we're going to need, and that is, again, more of a placeholder, because at this point, we're not sure what that's
I think
going to
we
look like.
look for the recommendation of SLBC, and then that recommendation goes to FinCom, and then we can kind of support or not support based upon that input.
Right. And, we're still a little bit under the gun, too, because we know we have to we have to go forward with the OPM recommendation to
Right,
MSBA.
you just started, you and Steve are starting that conversation.
Right. And so, it becomes, okay, well, that's just for the OPM, and really, then the funding request would probably be, if we think we're going to need more money. I mean, the money we have right now should cover the OPM, and then where we're going to go for the feasibility studies is probably where that delta would be, that maybe additional funding might be needed.
Important to note, neither one of us mentioned this when we were talking about this earlier. So we submitted, based upon the information that MSBA gave us, Steve submitted with the application $700,000, because that's what we were told to submit, so that's what we submitted. So we would get a 40% reimbursement for that $700,000, so we get $280,000. If we raise that $700,000 up to $1 million or 10 million, whatever, anything above 700, we're still only going to get 280 reimbursement, because that's the number we put forward to them in the contract. So, yeah, I know it's it is what it is. I mean, it's the same rules for everybody, but it kind of stinks.
All right, so maybe it won't be a meeting that takes place between all those committees. Maybe it's the discussions that are going to happen over the next week.
Yeah, that we
might
can help
dictate,
inform what the,
okay,
what
well,
an
this is
amount might be.
definitely not going to be
and we're
700, it's going to be more
Yes,
like.
exactly.
But I think that's a good piece of information for everybody. I mean, honestly, I would be surprised if more than 5% of those people that voted in favor of the $700,000 even considered how much we were getting reimbursed. They just said, oh, we need $700,000 for the feasibility study. Aye.
Right. I didn't know
It
at
passed.
that time that it was only 280.
Well, it's 40% of whatever the number is we submit with our application. We submitted $700,000 for a feasibility study, so that's what they agreed to reimburse. And we can't amend that.
All right.
Next item, this was my mistake for not including this, so Saul reminded me, and it should have been on the list. So this is
Never heard of this.
the meeting that you guys had with the Finance Committee, and the Select Board took a vote at that meeting to increase the Community Preservation Fund surcharge from 1% to 2%. So, and all of the other
is what it is.
subsequent conversations with it. So that, just following up on what the board's already agreed to there. Next is the discussion items that Alicia had brought up earlier today, and that would be approval of the $200,000 for the corporate field lighting and tennis courts at Littleton High School, as well as another $50,000 for window painting and rehabilitation of the Houghton Memorial building.
All CPC, okay.
So, all right.
So
We need some more information, like I said earlier, on some of the, like the community, when we see what the community has to say about the corporate field and a few other.
Right. So yeah, we did, right. So I think that this is tentative, this is a placeholder. I think the tennis court number is good. I know that in the sense that
It's recent.
it's been done by an engineer. There is, there's money in there for, the design, and it's appropriately
Okay.
scoped. I think I expressed my concerns earlier about the 200,000, and we'll leave it to the PRCE team to come back with something else. And the 50,000 is historic preservation at the Houghton Memorial Building. So this is what we believe CPC will be coming forward with.
CPC has approved the 50,000
Okay.
for the memorial building. And the Historical Society is paying their, basically the other half. So,
Do you know what the work is?
they're redoing all the windows are being, repainted. They're taking them out, stripping
Sill
them,
damage, yeah.
repainting, fixing all the sills, repainting them, yeah.
It's a lot of work, okay.
It was, yeah.
Okay, got it. And I believe, so our last two items are zoning articles. Try to leave them for the end to make sure that we have an anchor tenant at the end of a
everybody
warrant
stays.
that's done purposely. The first item, firearms business zoning bylaw amendment. This is, from what I understand, these are just some minor changes to the discussion we had back in, was it February special town meeting? About that. So I think they're just tweaks to that per.
The Attorney General changed one of the verbs, basically.
Yeah, so.
Oh,
small.
after we passed it, they reviewed it and changed, it made some minor changes.
They made a change to one of the verbs that was fairly minor.
So this allows us to be technically, to allow it to be technically and legally allowable. And the last piece, which we talked a little bit earlier, was the zoning article for the update to the MBTA communities multifamily zoning. So that's the other piece.
And that'll be attached to an address.
At that time, presumably, it would be ready along those lines. So,
Good.
yeah. And I think that's it.
I think the planning board's having, their consultants having a meeting on the 14th.
I mean, they already voted.
They have not.
They voted.
Well, they've voted to proceed with one,
Yeah.
but they haven't voted what they're inserting.
I think that's right.
They haven't voted on the zoning, the language of the
They have
zoning.
not
And
voted
the
on.
hearing, Mark, you know the hearing date? I think that
I don't.
they've already had the hearing date for the
They had this firearms hearing a
firearms.
while ago. I
That
don't
was
know.
back in, I think, June.
Yeah.
But this one, I think, is scheduled.
I don't remember the date of it.
Yeah, but I think it might be I want to say it might be the 18th. It's sometime next week, in the next few weeks, so, but it's forthcoming, so. And once the hearing takes place, then any other amendments, we
Okay.
can move forward with them, so. So that's it for the special town meeting. So, way we had sort of set up the motion was that the board, again, what I'd say is to do it in a way where we can say vote to insert the following articles as discussed at December 5th select board meeting. You have another bite at the apple. At your next meeting, you come back and you say, okay, we're going to be talking about the SRO officer.
All right, so we want to just do the ones that we can agree on right now? Is that what we're doing?
Yeah, right. So.
Sure, yeah, okay.
Or alternatively, the ones you can't agree on. maybe.
Okay.
It might be easier to just say, okay,
Everything
let's
but?
exclude.
Everything
yeah,
but, okay.
Everything but, so.
Well, is there a reason not to just insert them all and then pull the ones at our next meeting that we don't like?
I mean,
Yeah, that's what I would-
Actually, let's do that.
I think
It's so
that's-
much
Then why
easier.
even vote right
Yeah.
Like, let's just do it.
Yeah.
Like, yeah.
I mean, that's,
As long as that doesn't send a message to.
That's the thing, I don't want to send a message to
I
FinCom.
think you're saying, Chuck, I think you're saying that right now. It's that there's some, there are some in here that, let's use item number 1. I think that the board is fully behind the removal of the field driver and measures the weights and grain. Hey, that, but there's others that you're, requesting a little bit more information on and want to see that, so.
I think I'd probably throw something at the
I'm
end.
not going to
subject
sit
to-
here and go back and forth. I think
yeah,
we should
I
just
think it's
wait and see,
another bite of
we
the
want to
apple.
wait to see what
Yeah.
Finance Committee's opinion is before that gives us our final piece of the puzzle to weigh in, before we make a decision.
Or alternatively, you.
This is our draft.
You can give this, you can provide this to me as general guidance, and then you can come back to
That's
the
where I
next
feel like
meeting
I'm
and
at.
then say, okay, this is, based upon what's provided at the next meeting, you'll be able to review and then move forward.
I mean, if you can present this to find, these are the warrant articles that the select board has decided to consider. And we
Yep.
can do it that way, or we can vote. It's up to you guys.
I mean, I can say there's a handful of these that I'm not sure I would support, but I'm fine with them going forward until our next meeting.
Agreed.
Okay.
So I think I'll just take it as a general guide, and I know that the Finance Committee, we're starting to discuss those tonight, and then I think they're meeting again next Tuesday to go through them, and
Okay.
I think I committed to attend that meeting and answer whatever questions I could.
Okay.
Okay, I'll take that as a general guide, and I think that concludes our discussion on the special town meeting.
Do we need to do a motion, though, to add them, or
I-
are we just going to not do them?
I think it is,
Yeah.
because if there's concerns about what message it might send, then
Okay.
just say like, okay, the general guide would be like, put this together in its current form with the
Got it.
understanding we're going to make changes for our next meeting, if that's okay.
Yep.
Okay,
Great.
all right.
Select board weekly office hours.
Yeah, if I may, I think there was just I think the board, different members had wanted to talk about, the office hours process, how's that's going, and also talking about the scheduling. So if I could, I think right now our set time is
1 to 3.
1 to 3 on Fridays.
Yeah.
And I know, I've heard from some members about the difficulties about doing that during the middle of a workday. I've heard, some of the feedback I've received is like, well, doing it on a Friday sometimes gets a little bit more challenging if you have any weekend plans or things like that. So one thing I might suggest, in a prior community I worked in, what they had done for office hours, they actually only, a very dedicated member who was doing the office hours, but he was the only member who did it. But, and he recognized that. He's like, I just want to be available and have that. But one of the things, in terms of the timing of what he would do it, he'd do it just before a select board meeting. So in the case, in the case here, if we have a Monday meetings at 6:30, he would typically say 5:30 somewhere in the building that he did it in a different building and then would go to the meeting, but certainly could do something like that here where you already have a block of time set aside and you just be, say, augmenting it by another hour beforehand. And, one of the things that he found to be useful about that is things were still fresh in his mind, so when he provided his member update, he was able to
This came up.
was able to bring that up, and it was also timely as well. So, that's just one thought for you.
It could be every other Monday from 4 to 6.
It's just a suggestion. This is really, I'm just
And then
sort of
the
giving
other
you guys some
one,
ideas. You guys are going to
3 to 5.
talk about it, and then, we're also to, I hope, knowing the complexities of everybody's schedule, please, to work through Lisa, because that's what she's here for, to support you and say, okay, we're committing to this and that. And I think, we've got the Google, I think we've got the calendar that she sent out, and that's been working okay. So I think it's just a question of, all of you discussing, how the process has been going so far. Are there any changes in terms of timing?
It's just hard,
And
like,
where you
for me,
wanna
it's,
do it. you know.
Because it's during the work day for me, if I've got something going on Friday, that's why I can't commit, because I could be told at 2 o'clock or, at noon on Friday, hey, you've got to be in this meeting, or you've got to do this, so I can't.
I've got a standing meeting every Friday.
So I think, I mean, I think that I don't want to come in before select board meeting and spend another 2 hours
No, I don't
here,
blame-
right? Like, these
No,
are,
I get
these
you.
are long enough, but,
Did I mention he was a very dedicated
Yeah,
member?
you
He was, I was like, wow, that really is a long night, so it just.
and I think that, you clearly have issue, like, why don't, I mean, it would probably be better for some residents to have office hours on the weekend or in the evenings.
Yeah.
And I think each of us should choose, like, when we want to do them.
So, yeah, I agree with that, and my suggestion is we just go around, and say, like, Karen's got this Friday, Matthew has the following week, he picks whatever time he's going to do the following week, and then we just go around and you do
We
an
keep a
office
week
hour
ahead of
every,
it, a week ahead of it all the
Pick a
time?
week ahead, yeah.
Okay.
and pick a week ahead, and if you can't do it that week, what your assigned week, you just say, hey, can
Someone else
someone
pick
else
up.
cover? Right, and then you can pick the time that works for you.
And we
Okay.
just tell Lisa and give her plenty of time, plenty of advance warning.
Yeah. The one thing I would say is that, having a consistent date and time does help.
It's easier on the residents.
But you get the same
To know.
resident over and over and over again.
Yeah, so I think that's the thing is, there are people probably who haven't come to see us because they can't do it
They're
from
at
1 to
work,
3 on
or
Friday.
they're,
It might be helpful if, like, if we tried to coordinate times was the best
Yeah.
week, if it's an evening, you're picking which evening, and, whoever's doing the
Yeah.
evenings picks the same ones, and
I think, too, we could probably create a schedule of weeks, so
Yeah.
Mark takes week 1, you
Yeah.
take week, 3, 4, 5, and then we just keep rotating those weeks. If you can't make your week, find
see if we can
somebody
work
to
it out
swap
with one of
you.
us, yeah.
Yeah,
Okay,
agreed.
all right.
And then
And
let's do
if it's
that.
5, with 5 of us over 4 weeks to a month, no one's going to always get stuck with the same.
Yeah.
So just to clarify, what did we agree to?
So let's just.
Don't worry
decide-
about it.
Let's just decide on an order. You're doing this week?
Okay.
Yeah, I've got
So
this
you want
week
to just go
already.
this way?
Okay, so you've got this week,
So I've got next week,
okay?
and then Gary.
No, then Chuck, because I'm out of town.
You're in
17th.
DC?
I didn't mention that, I'm actually out of town that third week.
Slack out.
You have to train us.
DC, I'm in DC, so I'm in Trey already. I'm already behind.
Set up a Zoom.
You can do the third, and I'll do the fourth.
Okay.
That's all.
And then Mark is number 5.
Just tell them the date for the third.
Okay. And it's still the same time on Friday, is that what we're
I mean,
saying?
I'm going to continue to do that,
Yeah.
but it
That's fine.
sounds
I'll
like.
send Lisa, you know what, you want me to send it to Lisa, what we just decided?
Sure,
We're
sure.
going to pick times, and we can try to be as consistent as we can, but it doesn't work for Chuck, so he needs to pick some other time.
well, if you guys are both gonna do evenings, we probably should separate you two, right?
Yeah.
So that it's not like.
Yeah, whatever you guys want.
Three days.
Okay.
And then 2 evenings, so.
Okay,
So we need to decide how a week runs.
So I'm either gonna be in the evening or Saturday morning. Just putting that out there.
And then,
I don't
and then
know that I'm
Gary
for
can
sure gonna be in
match
the
whatever
evening.
you're doing.
that'd be about the
Like
same as
Sunday
me.
to Sunday.
Right.
Yeah, let's do
Okay,
Sunday.
so,
Yeah, Sunday to Sunday is the week.
Okay,
Okay.
all right.
so Gary, you'll follow up with Lisa
I
on
will,
that?
'cause it's gonna take a little bit of coordination, but let me just get the week numbers in a row, so.
So Karen's 1,
Karen's the 8th.
Starting now.
Matthew's 2.
Yeah.
Chuck's 3.
Chuck is
I'll
3.
take 4, and then you can be 5.
4 and Gary's
So I'm the
5.
week of the 17th through the 24th, right?
Right, well, I'll get it out there so you can see the next 9
Or we
months.
could do it, just for simplicity, so my assignment was to pick a time and have it scheduled no later than the 8th. Matthews will be no later than the 15th, then the 22nd, then the 29th.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Does that
but
make
how does,
sense?
does that just open what does she do, just open Google up for us wide open?
I think she's using Outlook Calendar in terms of scheduling.
But how do
so-
people know when to come?
Well, I guess there's your question, right? That's part of it, right? If you,
It's posted on the town website.
And so,
Yeah, I mean, it was-
so you can talk to Mark Crory, he can put it on LCTV. I post it on my Facebook
Mm-hmm. Okay,
page,
all
and I
right.
tend to get a lot of traffic. People seem to respond there quite
Okay.
frequently.
Okay.
And then, yeah, the town website.
and we can do that as the informational blast. If I go back, just to, if I can,
Okay.
if we go back, say, on latest news, it'd be like, come meet select
Yeah.
board member,
Of the month.
yeah, of the month. Karen Morrison will be available at, XYZ
Okay.
date, this location, and then put it there.
So just
Just
to
change.
discuss what you just said, Karen.
Yeah.
As of right now, you were scheduled for this Friday?
Yep.
Okay. But if you,
And I'm week 1.
okay. So your date is already in, so you had to have it in by the end. But
By
by the
today,
8th might
by
not.
Friday, yeah. And
But-
then Matthew will need to schedule something no later than the 15th.
But if he's doing it
The
on the
16th.
15th, it just doesn't give a whole lot of time for people to.
I mean, nobody's showing, not many people are showing up right now. I'm not sure how many folks we're doing grievous harm to by having a week or two of short
It's just that
notice.
basically it's another place to get your work done, because if half your time's not spent with anybody, you're just gonna be you gotta find something to do.
Just to try to schedule it out a week in advance.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Oh, yeah.
So on the Friday, you should have yours scheduled, by
Yeah,
her Friday,
yeah.
you should be scheduling yours, so on and so forth. All right, so by the Friday before your week, the person will have it scheduled.
I was gonna do that Saturday on the 23rd, but that's the Phantom Gourmet Moody Street Food Fest.
In the
Pretty
morning.
awesome.
Are you doing
I'll
breakfast
probably do the 23rd from like 8 to 10. Library open from 8 o'clock. on
Library
Saturdays?
opens
Is the library open at 8?
No. So I can do it in 103 because we have access to 103.
Yeah.
I think so, yeah.
I have a key.
I don't need we're not gonna do a motion for this.
No motion.
No, it's-
No motion, discussion dependent, so that's fine. We get.
I'm putting in the 23rd, 8 to 10, room 103.
Awesome.
Okay,
Great.
all right. And Gary, you'll follow up with Lacey just to.
Yep, just let her kind of know what's
Okay.
going on.
Okay.
I know she's been working way too hard to make this.
Well, that's it. I mean, it's just trying to practice. We wanna be
Right, that's why I
simple.
wanted to have this, we can at least now, okay, we've got something will work. All right. Review and potential update the select board use of town council policy.
Okay, this was supposed to be in the packet, so it did not get, she did not put that in.
So,
Hold on, we'll pull up the existing policy.
So we did share the existing.
Yeah, there is.
So it's interesting because the existing policy does speak to everyone else but us, right?
Right.
Well,
If you
all
read
other
it-
Fords.
Right, so if you read it for what it is, which leaves a lot of room for interpretation on any 5 of us at any time can reach out to town council. So that's the discussion we have to have, is that how we want,
Well, it's more than that though, too, right? Because, I mean, it also, all town employees can reach out to town. There's no policy on that.
I mean, as a general practice.
Town employee can pick up the phone and call town council anytime they want?
There's no policy against it. What happens if the planning board says?
well, Ryan
tells-
should be saying something to him.
So what, the planning board theoretically can't reach out to town council, but they can say, hey, Maureen, can you talk to town council and
That's gotta be, I guess the way I was,
Let's get it to us, I want to deal with us. This is
Okay.
where, the rest of it is working, I don't think.
I think it's
We're
always
not
had to
over
go through
budget
town
on our
administrator.
town council because of everybody else.
all I've ever known is going to the town administrator. So, unless it's an issue involving the town administrator, I guess.
Right.
But there was anytime,
And that's the chair, then the chair then reaches
Yeah.
out to town council.
Yeah, I want everyone to have access to town council. That's important. Now, I mean, sure, if, the thing about town council we have to talk about is it being used because I have something that I want an answer to that has nothing to do with the rest of the board? Or, you know what I mean? Or so a resident came to me and I want to get some clarification on something. What are the rules to that? I mean, because let's just be honest, we're spending, I don't want to even know, what's it, 260 now an hour?
I don't know what the actual.
But-
yeah,
So I just want to make
almost as
sure.
much as you make an hour.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah, it's- Right.
So I think we're on firm ground in terms of ethics policies, and there's plenty of law about not appropriating town funds for personal use, so I think we
Oh, I
can
wasn't
set
going-
that aside.
Yeah, I wasn't going there, I was more
But in
of
terms
things
of like,
that aren't like select board.
you know, hey, Ivrea, can we put a skating rink in the middle of town common? Is
I
that
want to
okay?
know,
You know, like,
because a resident asked me, and I want to know.
yeah, write me a memo, please, like, no.
I mean,
Yeah.
it would go on forever, we'd have them.
Right.
So,
Well,
But-
so should we just say that we go through the chair and Ryan when we?
well, I think that's kind of how we are, but, you know, Karen brought up a point of, there are certain things that come up on an agenda that you want information immediately? Or there's situations where I guess it could be?
I'm a little, I don't know, I'm torn between the frugality and intimate understanding of billing practices.
Yeah.
And wanting to protect the town from that, from unnecessary expenditure. On the other hand, a process that's too laborious is also expensive in another way, right? It's opportunity costs for Ryan, it's you getting pulled away from work or not, spending time doing something else. My one thought I have is that if the question is regarding an agenda item, it shouldn't need further permission or.
But Gary or Ryan might have the answer to that question.
That's the biggest thing I worry about, is Ryan having already have asked the question or already has the knowledge base from previous communities or experience that he has. That he knows
But then it should be in the packet.
I mean, maybe, I think.
Not necessarily. No, I think there's.
I think that might happen. I think also, though, there's a cost to Ryan having to, stare at his computer just in case one of us has a question on Monday afternoon, which is.
I will say, Karen, that's okay with me, because at least, because most of the time it's like, oh, good question, let's just shoot it out, like that's, so for me, it's not,
Good.
yeah, I don't, that's okay, and then, what I've seen too in other communities, who maybe didn't have as strong a policy, is there's certain members that would just start calling. I think we've had, we call town council, and keep in mind, they're also kind of sometimes put into a difficult position too, because sometimes they,
If there's a problem with, what folks are bringing to town council, then I think that's something that we can bring up and
We hold that
discuss
discussion.
as a group. But, I'm going to be honest, I have a certain amount of time that I can spend, and it's a certain block. And it is when it is. I don't know when it's going to be, and if I have questions for town council, I want to be able to ask them.
That would address my concerns, which I think in the past, there's been a couple times when board members have gone behind everybody's back and done private inquiries.
It was
Yeah.
huge last year.
Yeah.
And I think that was the thing that was really the only thing that I was concerned about. I don't feel, or at least, I don't know of any issues with this group in the last year that I thought it was in an inappropriate use of town council. Maybe you're doing stuff nefariously behind the scenes I don't know about. Mark. No, I'm just kidding. But Karen's like, let's make sure that you're always, make sure that we're always informed would go a long way towards, if it does become a problem, then we can address it.
Okay, and you know what? I guess at that point, because you're being CC'd, you'd see the email, and if you got it in a timely manner. So you could say, Karen, you know what? I have the answer to that question. Tom,
Don't
whatever.
worry about it.
I can manage this.
yeah, I mean, that's the same timing thing, right? Because if I know the answer, then, then I could,
But I don't have to sit and wait to see when, it's,
So can I ask,
all those
doing the
questions
request
I had for
via email.
Ivrea, I could have put in an email and saved the entire town a lot of time.
What are you thinking?
so I agree with the inform. My other question is, are we just going to enforce this policy in general? Because in the time I've been on the board, we have not approved the use of any board's town council.
So we can put this back, we can put this out on a blast email to all boards if we want to.
It's come to our
And
attention.
if we're going to, if this can I ask, this is a select board policy, correct?
This is,
Not
yeah,
anything
under
else.
your administrative policies and
Okay, so
procedures.
this is something, one of these things that we can change to how we want it to read. If you think this is,
I'm not I mean, I think we probably should look at this more in detail, whether this is the exact wording we want. But my point is, we're not enforcing this at all
we're
right
definitely
now.
not. I agree.
So,
Nobody's inquiring of,
No
I've
one-
never gotten a phone call
Oh,
from
yeah, I mean, that's only because.
someone on the planning board saying, hey.
We haven't actively asked, because typically it's collaborative, like, so if it's, say, the planning board asking questions of that nature, usually it's, you know, the town planner, myself, putting questions in.
is it out of hand?
I wouldn't describe it as out of
Okay,
hand.
well,
Let's ask town council.
I mean,
Calls from everybody.
I am curious, like, how much of the load comes from other boards and not from us? Do you have any concept of it?
Should be.
Yeah, I think that, you know, say for the firearm zoning, that we obviously we're using town council a lot, we're trying to, you know, put that together, and MBTA zoning will be doing the same. So, for the most part, it's probably more the planning board and more specifically the town planner that's doing that work. So, you know, but otherwise, you know, it isn't really that common.
Okay.
But I mean, I think Mark's point too, I mean, it'd be nice
well, I
nice
mean,
to have some sort of clarification in terms of the staff as well, so that they don't make those, you know, that they make those mistakes so that it's.
I mean, just to pick on the water department, when they were bringing putting the water to Boxborough, town council knew about it, but we didn't.
They, that's a separate, they have a separate agreement, so.
But so they're paying for town council out of their budget, not ours?
That's right.
In that case? Okay.
Okay, so it is, they just happen to be using the same firm.
Kind of sounds like it's not broken in terms of anyone else.
Okay, so.
So just like the code of conduct, I think we just have to constantly,
Yeah, you know what?
Double check
If
and
you're
make sure
CCing Ryan and I, and CCing me, it's just so that I know that there's something that is being brought to town council that
Yeah.
I can speak at the next meeting. I can say, hey, what was the answer you got to this? Or what? Or I can say, you know what? I know Ryan knows the answer. It's two sets of eyes that are seeing it, saying, I know the answer to that question, or Ryan, I know someone that has the answer to that question.
well, you could reply
You know,
all and say, you know, Ryan, please, when Karen gets this answer, Ryan, please share it with the rest of the board or something like that too.
So just the other thing
So we
that I
can-
would add is that, like, you know, when you're on the Orchard Group or LCTV,
Yeah.
and you have a question for town council,
Yeah.
you're no longer a select board member.
Right.
Right, you are a member of that
No,
board.
you are still a select, you're always a select.
No, but as far as contacting town council,
Right. That's
you
what
don't
I'm
have the
saying.
right to
Okay.
contact town council.
Yeah.
We can't
Because
gatekeep ourselves.
you fall under that.
On the
You
committees we
fall
sit
on the other boards.
Look in the mirror, hey Karen.
All right.
Absolutely not.
So we want to revisit this because I don't think that we should be I don't think I want to be the gatekeeper. This whole board has to approve every single approach to town council. That seems ridiculous.
No, but, you know, it is a strict, I don't like having things written that we're not enforcing. But I recognize that it's not out of hand. You've just said that there's no frivolous use of town
Well,
council, so.
well-
This is really enforceable when we start seeing a problem, I guess. That's not what it says.
Well, but the way it's written is, it gives us the leeway to do these things. It doesn't mandate that we do any of these things. It's generally granted for serious
Right,
legal
if it
matters.
got
That's a
out of hand, you're
guideline.
right. Okay.
You should be prepared to demonstrate, so
Yeah, okay,
that means that if we
yeah.
ask,
So
or if
what-
Ryan asks.
What we're missing is, for any given board, you don't know what the town council expense is. We know we have a town council budget of 200,000 or whatever it is. We don't know what percentage of that is used by any individual entity.
But they must bill, like, when they bill us, they must
do.
tell
Yeah.
us what.
They do,
Oh, yeah.
and they, and
It's itemized.
Yeah,
So
Yeah.
we
It's an
could
itemized
find
one.
that out, right?
Okay.
So,
Yeah.
So is.
All right, Ryan, this is one thing we didn't ask. Now, it could change if another person's in your seat. That's why I like policy. Because if you're not here and someone else is, it still works. So what is your feel to what
I mean,
Makes sense.
you know, in the communities I've worked in, it's always, you know, because it is expensive, it goes for the TA. So, you know, but, you know, that's my opinion. The board's got their perspective, and, you know, if it's just to inform. And I would say, if you're going to do anything, though, too, you know, to Mark's point, I think it would be nice, at least the staff, if they're going to be making those inquiries, should be going through, you know, through me, because again, I'm being held accountable if I go over budget, right? So,
Oh, we're not touching that.
so yeah, you know, it's hard for me to do
Everybody
that
should
if
be
I don't
going
have
through
control
you. I
over
mean,
what happens in the
No,
beginning.
I don't want to
so,
get the staff, all staff should be going through.
So I mean, you know, but I think if you had that idea about informing, you know, that's fine, you know, just, but I would, you know, my suggestion about staff being what it is would be helpful as well. So, I don't know, Mark, you want to make a change, you know, and take a stab at it and
Just
maybe
adding
make
staff to
and then
this.
come back at it.
I'll take a stab at it and come back.
But as far as we go, just keep it at your CCing, just so that you're aware. So when town council speaks back to you, that's
Yeah,
typically what happens.
I mean, if I'm using Matthew's example, right, that, you know, the problem that Matthew was giving the example of was a member who was making inquiries without anybody else knowing. So, okay, but you put that same example and then you still put the informed piece on there, then where does the board then intervene and say, gee, is that, you know,
So no, that's a great, let's go down
You're
that path.
operating outside the board.
If we had known that a board member was asking those questions, like we would have said, I would have shut it down right away, like, it's inappropriate, this isn't part of the process.
as chair in that.
Well, or even as just, you know, as a board member, I would have brought it up, you know, to the rest of the board or whatever, but I think in that case, inform would have been enough for us to start the discussion.
Fair enough.
And hopefully been able to curtail that. And if that doesn't work, then we can revisit this and have everything go through.
And I think that if Mark's going to work on, or, you know, that, having that in there, then it's, you know, that, again, if someone has, I mean, I've been on, you know, worked with boards enough that there are some members who, you know, they have a particular topic and just go back and back and back. And, you know, so it's just something to keep in mind that even, you know, under the informed model, there can be potential abuse.
Right.
Sure.
But like, because we're informed, I think we would recognize that.
That's-
And you can certainly bring it up to the chair and say, I think this is getting out of hand, we need to stop this.
Okay.
Does the board agree? And hopefully if the board is saying, the board will agree. If the board is insane, then we have nothing, you know, we have other problems.
Yeah.
We could mirror the language we use on the ethics thing, right? That, you know, can be subject to discussion in a meeting
Code of
and
conduct.
censure or whatever it is that we said we'd do. If it gets that far, gosh.
Okay.
Okay.
You know the last motion I'm looking for. Minutes. Oh, that's right. We have minutes from August 14th.
So there are a couple of places where Marin's name is misspelled,
Okay, thank you. Then I don't have, that's all that I,
and also,
was glaring to me.
Ivria's name. So in,
it's Ivrea.
it's, I mean, it starts with, at the first mention, it's an I, but then after that, it's an A.
Okay.
So if
Okay.
you look on, what page is this? 103, right under social equity, the heading 2, social equity policy, her name is Afria, but it should be Ivria. And I think I saw a couple other places where that was the problem, but those were the only two things I had.
I had one correction.
And it was Mara instead of Marin.
Okay.
Still the same.
But it was spelled correctly the first time.
Smart enough, Sue.
No, come on.
What was the correction, Karen?
Oh, so, under updates, member town administrator updates, public input, for my updates, it said that I said I was going to try to do brief articles for the Lowell Sun on town happenings, which doesn't quite capture the you know, what I discussed, which was that we're going to try to move forward with a model that mimics, for example, Lowell Sun's 5-minute read.
Oh, yeah, that's definitely different.
That's
You're not working for the Lowell Sun.
Yeah, I don't want anyone to think I'm becoming a beat reporter for the Lowell Sun.
Scoop Morrison over there doing some work, yeah.
Let you borrow one of my scally caps. Newsies.
We can ask her to rework that. I think I understand the point.
And then I have just a minor typo. In section 6, when it says it says Mark Rambacher made me motion, and I think it should be the motion.
You're very
What page is
bossy.
that?
Sometimes
Yeah.
you make me motion.
Which one is that?
It's at the 10 o'clock, at the very bottom.
There's only one made me in the
page-
You made a motion.
This is always a question.
The
I was
very
wondering
last
if this
page.
is supposed to be a pen and ink. Are we supposed to be catching the pen and ink stuff?
Yeah,
What if we were
okay,
all
10
English
I got it.
majors? I mean, we'd be,
I got my red pen ready.
I mean, I look it over to make sure that the gist of what
Content.
the content is into that. Karen, yours, that was definitely, could be read a different way.
Yeah.
So do we want to approve them
As
as
amended.
amended, or do we
Yeah,
want
as
to wait?
amended. I think
till-
as amended.
Do you,
I don't
unless
think
you,
it
but
needs-
you want to see it, though? I think it's, because yours, I think.
I mean, I mean, I think you understood what I
Yeah,
was
no, I
trying to
did, but
capture,
it's the
so.
same time, you'd want to give you the right to be able to go back and look at it if you want. I mean, that's.
I'm good.
Okay.
We
all
could,
right.
I mean, if Karen did see it after it was posted and it was amended,
Yeah, it can
maybe
amend
she
it.
goes back and looks at it and says, that's still not
Still
capturing.
not,
We can just
no, I
rewrite it.
understand, yeah, it's fine.
So I'll make a motion, we approve the minutes of August 14th, 2023 as
Second?
amended.
Second?
Moved by Mark, seconded by Matthew. All those in favor?
Aye.
I thought I was quicker.
Thank
Motion to
you.
adjourn?
Second.
Motion to
Karen.
adjourn made by Matthew, seconded by Karen. All those in favor? Say aye. Thank you, Littleton.
Good night.
Night.
Peace.